like super slow internet access in here, or is it just me?
There's a web link.
I don't know about this one.
Rewrite.
For some reason, mine is like dead and slow, so maybe it's my machine, I don't know.
Russ didn't talk about it in their reading list, and so that's what we're gonna talk about in this unit. And then so, I make a lot of pages for each of them. And then what we do, and then there's a couple of videos, and then there's a video they have to watch, and then it links out to like their assignments, so if they do that page, they're done.
Is everybody doing okay this
For the
morning?
next one, and it's the next.
Alright,
one.
cool deal. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about like horse packs, and it's highly possible that you already use horse packs in your class, but if you don't, this is really a great way to make creating your course a lot less painful and taxing. So we're gonna talk about that today and how to incorporate them, and talk about the types of horse packs that you can use. Some of them are actually incorporated inside Canvas, others you'll actually have to go outside of Canvas and import them in. And then of course, there's the third one that doesn't necessarily have a course pack for Canvas, but it does for Blackboard Desire to Learn. You can actually import those into your Canvas course shell and then kind of manipulate the content the way you want it for your class. We're gonna talk about those. Well, the first thing I guess we need to do is talk about exactly what a course pack is, because I know a lot of people are familiar with it, but there may be some people that aren't. Course packs are basically a great collection of material that's very course specific. You can download these at any time from either your publisher, book publisher, or even from an external source. And most of them are formatted for a specific LMS, learning management system, like Canvas, Blackboard, Desire to Learn. You know, before we actually got Canvas, we used Blackboard. And so when we went to the publisher content website area, we had to make sure that we were downloading the right course pack for Blackboard. Well, now we basically are doing the same thing, only now it's for Canvas. As I said before, there are some of them that we don't necessarily have course packs for Canvas specifically. But thanks to the import tool built into Canvas, you can download course packs from different learning management systems, and they will work for Canvas. It's just a matter of you manipulating the content. So next on our list, what do they include? Well, this is kind of a loaded question because there's a variety of things that they can include. Some of them will include cases, some will include articles, some will include even excerpts from the book chapters, and some will actually include quizzes, which are awesome, PowerPoint presentations, pictures, images, even some sound clips, depending on the course matter and what the publisher has decided to actually include in the course pack itself. Now, one of the best things about course packs is you are not confined to just using the course pack by itself. You can actually add your own content, truly making the course customized to your students and your needs, which I think is very cool. This section is going to be very short because what I want us to do, if we have not actually signed up for our course packs, I want us to do that at the end of this section today. So I'm going to give us time at the end to do that, and then we're going to come around and make sure that everyone understands how to download them, how to import them, and all of that stuff. So this is going to be a very brief description of these course packs. So next, how do you access them? They sound great, but how do we actually use them? How do we access them? Well, you have basically three ways. As I told you before, you can even go to first the publisher content website, which we're going to do that in a second so you can see how that works. You can directly access them through Canvas, and I'm going to show you where they are because we do have some that are built in, or you can use the import tool. The import tool, it sounds like it's a lot, but trust me, it's about 3 clicks and then you're done. It's just a matter of you actually clicking and then deciding which content you're gonna use. It's like a buffet table where you take what you want and you leave the rest. That's exactly what it's like. So don't think that it's anything difficult, hard, impossible. It's actually pretty easy. Okay, so going back to publisher content. So when we talk about the publisher content, the website itself is going to have a lot of information on it, and almost every single one of the publisher content websites is going to require you to sign in, which means that you have to create an account. With those particular websites, it is highly possible that when your students click on it, it may take them to an external site that requires them to do the exact same thing that you're doing, which is create an account. They may even have to put in a code. A lot of that information though, I know it sounds difficult, but a lot of that information is gonna be provided through the campus bookstore. Okay, when they buy their textbooks, there may be a code, an optional code that they can purchase that will send them to, or give them access to this publisher content website. Now, is this gonna be an extra cost for the students? Well, the deal is, in most of our classes, and Susan can attest to this, I think, because she taught one, where they have the option, right? You can either purchase the book hardback, or they can purchase this code, and the code goes to a website which has all of the same material that the book has. And it also has, these tests and quizzes and assignments that you can then deploy and grade and so on and so forth. Now, there's a lot of it out there, and it might be overwhelming when you see it, trying to sift through it all and figure out what's what, how's it gonna work, and if it's gonna be the easiest way for me to get my information to my students. So what we have to do is kind of figure out a tool to evaluate those. So this is what I kind of came up with. What are some of the ways to evaluate course pack material? Is it right for me? Is it right for my students? Okay, well first, is it relevant? Okay, is this something that is pertinent to my students, to my class at this time? Okay, next, is it current? A lot of times with some of this course pack material, publisher content, things happen and update all the time, constantly. And we may see things in there that are not exactly current. If they're not current, then it'll be up to us to manually go in and maybe change that content. Or maybe let the students know, hey, this is what the blah, blah, blah model suggests. But now we have a new study that has introduced a new model, and this is what the new model says. That's kind of a good way to describe it, because then they can compare past to present. Is it easily accessible? This one I think is so important because, look, technology is great and wonderful, and we know that. I absolutely love it. It's phenomenal. But when it's hard for students to access, but it's hard for us to access any type of material via the internet or whatever, it gets so frustrating. And our attention spans, just like our students, are not exactly, ever-ending or whatever. And so sometimes let's face it also, we have very limited amount of time to get our course packs and our courses, our syllabi and all that completed. So if something is not easily accessible, if it's difficult, then we automatically instantly try to find easier ways to do the same job, right? So that's another way you can kind of evaluate that. Is it modular, meaning that can you move through each chapter in what I like to call spatial order? You got three types of order, right? You have chronological, you have logical, you have spatial, where you can just kind of interchange. Like you don't have to go from chapter 1. Maybe you can start with chapter 5, then go back to chapter 3, then move to chapter 12. So is it set up in a way where I can actually move from chapter to chapter without having to go in a specific order? Next, is it something that's customizable, meaning that can I put my own information in there and combine it with the publisher content? Sometimes with these book publishers, they lock their stuff down. So much so that because they feel like that way, at least they have a better grip of what is in it, what can be added to it, and so on and so forth. And then they talk about copyright issues as well. Now, that's great and wonderful. I mean, it really is. But what if I do want to add some different types of material within that course pack for my students? I mean, I want to be able to do that. So, if it's customizable, then that's great for me. Can I integrate it in the Canvas grade book? Now, this is another big one as well. You're gonna see, I'm gonna show you several of them. Some of which you can integrate into Canvas gradebook automatically, not a problem, very smooth. Others require kind of a manual type entry, meaning that you have to create your own column and then manually add those grades in. And I mean, both of them are great. One just takes a little bit longer than the other. I mean, we would all love to be able to just click a button and just like something that's native to Canvas, it populates in the gradebook. Sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes the bookseller, will program it that way, or the book publisher, and then sometimes they want it completely independent from the Canvas. So, then lastly, I think this one's important as well. If students are having problems, is there someone that they can contact besides the instructor that they can utilize? Now imagine, if you will, you are in class and you have set up your Canvas shell, and you've got all your course material, and it is great, it's wonderful, you are ready to go. Every student in the class has a code that they have to put in the first day. And you know, you checked it, you got their codes per student, every student has a unique code, and you've already generated them, you passed them out, you're good. They go to the website, they put in the code, it doesn't work. It says something about they have to register, or they have to log in, well, they're already logged in. Well, obviously, the first thing they're gonna do is send you the email saying, hey, this doesn't work, or they're gonna contact you. And obviously, they're gonna be frustrated about it. So, is there another individual or another source that they can go to for help other than you? Because obviously, you have more than one class. And just think, what if you have given this code, for example, and use this same system for all of your classes, and you have the same problem in every single class? See what I mean? So, I always evaluate the effectiveness of these course packs by the amount of, and the easiness of their customer service. Because if their customer service is difficult, if it's hard for me to get in touch with them, yeah, I can only imagine what the student's gonna encounter. And then, of course, they're gonna come back to me. So that's another way that I evaluate those. Any questions about this? Anyone had any experience with this before, dealing with course pack? No?
With Cengage, I do oral communication with the Communicate.
Yeah, with Cengage. Yeah, I'm gonna show that today, actually. Yeah. I will tell you this, I had not necessarily a bad experience, but it was a little tedious. We do something here, we used to anyway, something called electronic testing service, which basically evaluates students on a variety of skills in writing, you know, content, syntax, grammar, blah, 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 and all these different things. In order for them to take this test, they have to enter in a unique code, like I told you before. And they all have to be in the same room when they do this and such. Well, when the students would submit their codes, some of them, their codes weren't working. I mean, it would just say code not found, or code invalid, and so on and so forth. Well, when we set this up, when we got our training, the one thing that the administrator told us was that, look, if you have any problems at all, here's the number to call. We have about 50 to 100 people there waiting to help your students if they have issues. And I mean, sure enough, I had the first student who had an issue trying to log in. I call that number, and within like 2 rings, someone picks up. And instead of me trying to explain the problem, I just say, here. Here it is. You know, and it got to the point where, that was in my first class. My second class, there were several people that had issues. I said, I just put the number up on the screen. I was like, look, call this number. And I mean, literally within like 15 minutes, all my students were okay and ready to go, and they could enter their information in. So that customer service, there's something to be said about that. Fast, easy, and efficient. Okay, moving on. So let's get started with one of the course packs. This one is gonna be one that is already incorporated into our Canvas shell. This is from McGraw-Hill. And Micah, this is a screenshot of one of hers and how she uses it. If you look here, you see where it says basic English skills and so on and so forth. Well, when you go into Connect, which is what this is what you'll see, and this is what the students will see. They won't see everything here, but it will show you your assignments, your library menu, and then of course there's something called Learn Smart, which is where the assignments are actually housed. Okay, when you click inside of Canvas, it automatically takes you there. And then, of course, you can choose the assignments that you want the students to actually to work on. Inside Canvas itself, you can kind of customize these as well to the amount of assignments, the amount of quizzes, and so on and so forth. You can even give them feedback, which is great. Now, also, when I say create assignments, this is a great one to look at here. Notice at the bottom, in yellow, this is where Micah actually created an assignment, and it's unnamed right now. And over to the right, it has her name, instructor, all that information. The book, this is really helpful because this kind of lets the student know if they're in the right place or not, if they actually see the book that they have in their hand, or the code is there also. She can even upload her syllabus. Here's another cool thing. If you look at the bottom right, you can see where it says upload syllabus. So essentially what this is an LMS inside an LMS, really, you know, which is kind of cool. But again, this one is incorporated into our Canvas shell, okay, via our bookseller. Okay.
Ron, if I can ask, how do you activate that in Canvas?
Okay, So glad you asked that question. Let's do that. Okay, let's see if I can get you there. And hopefully my internet will not be slow as Christmas like it has been. In fact, I'll tell you what, just because I know it is, let me go to PC. I'll go over here, and I'll show you how this works. All right, step one is going to be to log into your Canvas course shell. So hopefully I still remember my passwords. I'm gonna try that up here. So that's step one. So let's do that together. Hey, it worked. Man, this is good. Okay, so everyone at this point should be logged into their Canvas course shell, right? Okay. Now, step two, you're gonna choose the course that you want to activate your LMS or your course pack material or your publisher content, okay? I am going to choose my freshman comp class first. Okay, so this is it, freshman comp, blah, 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 boom. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I'm gonna scroll down to where it says settings, okay? So that's step three, scroll to settings and click settings. Now, when I do that, notice at the top, I have all these different menu items, right? I have sections, navigation, so on and so forth. If you remember from yesterday, or from our last meeting, we went into navigation and we changed a couple of things, right? Okay, click on navigation. Next step, scroll down to the sections that are either enabled or disabled. If you have not used any of your publisher content, they'll all be disabled. Mine is enabled because I do use McGraw-Hill Connect in my class, and there it is. Now, if I scroll down, as Nick said, he uses Communicate. Well, notice that Cengage is already incorporated into our Canvas course shell. So if I wanted to use Cengage for my 101 course, to enable it, I would just click Enable over here, and it'll actually work. Now, yes, there are several things that I have to do first before they're actually available to my student. But this is step one, okay? But now, I digress. Going back up to McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill is now connected, okay? Remember, to enable or disable, you can either drag and drop, or you can click those three little dots over to the side and either enable or disable. Again, this one was used in my class, so it's actually enabled at this point. Now, when that happens, and you click update, which is at the bottom, or save, don't forget that, because I always do. Notice that now you have McGraw-Hill Connect over to the left-hand side, okay? And your students will have it as well. Now you can click on McGraw-Hill Connect, and what happens is, you've got all this information that you can use for your class. This one says go to my Connect section, which I can click on that. This one is relatively old, but there may be something in here. It may still be working, let's see. Yeah, okay, cool. So this is my course. And some of these things I definitely had to set up, okay? Just like you have to set up things for your course as well. One is called composition, you can see, and these little icons over here basically give you the status of that particular course or that assignment. If I wanted to upload my syllabus, like I told you guys before, I could do that. Sections of the handbook are over here. Again, this lets the student know, hey, I'm in the right place. This looks just like the book I have, or whatever. You could even add an assignment if you wanted to do that. And this site is very user-friendly because the things that you're not sure how to do, it has a little show me how button over to the side where you can just click on it and it shows you how to do. There's a plethora of things in video form, which I think is very cool. Okay, so there's that. Let's move back one. Let's say that you want to deploy these at a specific time or a specific day. Again, you have that option. It's just, again, this is just like Canvas in terms of you having power over when you want the students to actually take these assignments or complete the assignments, or you can deploy the assignments, or you can disable the assignments, delete the assignments, or whatever. Now, a great thing about this one, since this one is actually inside Canvas, this one, when you make your grades, or when the students actually complete the assignments, there'll be a column that will show up in your gradebook. And that column will populate with all the grades from this particular assignment.
Rodney, what if you haven't registered for that yet and you haven't
Okay, and that's what we're gonna talk about. When we finish all of this, we're gonna allow everyone to actually register, sign up for this particular, LMS.
Alright.
Now, our 101 and 102 is changing slightly. Susan probably knows about this as well. We are not necessarily using a specific book like this, but that doesn't mean that you can't use some of these resources from McGraw-Hill, you know? So just know that. Yes?
Can you walk us through, I mean, well, when you use this app, what have you chosen to, feature? I mean, are you building in the PowerPoints or quizzes that are already, you know, created?
Okay, and I'm so glad you said that. Okay, so what I use this for
Yeah.
is for pre-assessment, meaning that, let's say my 101 class from 2 years ago, and I used 2 years ago for a specific reason, because we're not, you know, we restructured 101 and 102. But when students come into class, I don't necessarily know what their strengths and weaknesses are. And the diagnostic essay tells me a lot, but it doesn't really tell me everything that I need to know, right? So what I do is I will scroll through some of these assignments. And again, understand that the assignments correspond with the chapters in the book. So, let's say one is on grammar, syntax, so on and so forth. And maybe I want the students to complete 10 items out of 50. You know, maybe there's a pool of 50 questions, and maybe I want them to complete 10 of those, and I choose those 10, specifically because I wanna see what their strengths and weaknesses are. Then I will maybe use this as a pre-assignment for assessment before I actually start teaching, if that makes sense, you know?
Okay.
Let's say, for example, they've gone through the entire battery of things, there's so many in here, I mean, you know, again, they're based on the chapters in the book, so there's a lot. Let's say that they've gone through all the ones that I've assigned, and maybe I want to do something like a pre or a post-assessment, you know? So they've done all these tests, now let me just put them all together, take a few questions from each chapter, and just see how well they comprehend or how well they retain. I can do that and put that in here, and again, once it's completed, it will automatically populate in Gradebook and Canvas. Susan, you use this, right?
I do use it, and I've used it 2 different ways. Jennifer Foster Farrell, oh gosh, what is it? I can't, anyway.
Ponder.
You know,
Yes,
Ponder, thank
Ponder,
you.
that's it.
We all know who I'm talking about. But she assigned it to her basic English students, where she just went through and clicked everything that she wanted them to work on, and then every week they had to submit a screenshot that they had completed 10% more, and then 10% more. So it was like a semester long, do this at your pace, you know, as long as you get 10%, you know, a week.
Yep.
But I've done it to, like, if we're gonna talk about, kinda like you do it, if we're gonna talk about comma splices this week, I'll go through and check all of them that say comma splice and go through and see what I wanna do. They finish it like the weekend before, and then we go in and talk about it, and that way I know that we have a shared knowledge base, I guess, shared language to talk about. But the other thing that I really like is the section on plagiarism and like MLA citation, because if they can do that, then we're picking a gap. We got it.
And this is still a book that we're requiring them to buy.
There is
right?
a digital form of the book included when they buy their code from McGraw-Hill, so they
Yeah.
don't have to, they can either buy the book and get the code in the back, and then
Yeah.
they have the hard copy in this, but I think it's getting harder to sell them back.
Yeah.
And they can go to the campus bookstore, pro tip, they can go to the campus bookstore and buy the book, or buy the code, just the code at the campus bookstore, like a gift card or anything. Or they can save $20 by going straight to the McGraw-Hill handbook website and buying it.
It's in there. It's in
Found
there.
that out.
That is
So
awesome.
they're happier that way, so.
Indeed.
Okay.
They are.
And
Yeah.
they will have access to that book for a calendar year.
Mhm. Yep, that is good to know. And, you know, another thing about this too, something I feel that's an advantage, the online version versus the paperback. First of all, the paperback is pretty thick, it's like the King James Version of the Bible. Second of all, they tend to lose those sometimes, and then, of course, you know, they're upset that they lost their book, because, you know, the ebook version is just a lot easier to handle, maintain. I mean, they just go back to the website, if they need to download it, they can download it, or whatever it is they need to do to it at that point, you know?
I think they could have it on multiple devices, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, maybe,
I think maybe 2 devices.
I'll have to check into that. But that is McGraw-Hill, and you know, McGraw-Hill Connect, Learn Smart, all, it is great to use for students, for comprehension like that.
And it grades itself, so you don't have to,
Yeah.
you have to go back and check.
Well, I know, I already use that book in
Yeah.
class all the time, and it is super useful, so if that's one that they're all using already, then this seems natural. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you analytics for like, what's the most missed question, or everything like that.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
See, again, it is
That's
truly
really
like a true LMS, you know, it really is, and it's cool that it's built into as a component of Canvas, you know.
Mhm.
Any other questions about McGraw-Hill? We're gonna sign up for that here before we end today. Okay, so the next one, since that's for 101 and 102, now we're gonna talk about 201, 202, 301, 302, you know, basically your survey courses. All right, we do have, and I'll call it an LMS, but it's not as robust. That's a good word, robust, I like that. It's not as robust as what we see here with McGraw-Hill Connect. This one is through Norton's, okay? I'm gonna show you what that looks like. If you go to www.nortons.com, you will have to, just like with the others, log in, okay? Which means you have to create an account. They have to verify that you are, you know, an actual instructor, so on and so forth. It takes normally minutes for them to do their verification, okay? And when you do, I'm gonna switch here. See if my computer lets me enough to switch easily. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Hey, there we go, okay, excellent. All right, so what you're gonna do is, because some of us teach American Lit, some of us teach, you know, World Lit, English Lit, whatever, you find the textbook that you teach from, okay? Now, all I did, and I just wanna make sure that everyone understands, all I did was I went up and did a search right up here for American literature, Norton's Anthology of American Literature. And when I did, there were a few things that actually came up as results, right? You have to find the correct textbook that you're working from. Now, the one that we use for American Lit, it goes from 1700 to 1865, and then 1865 to present day. So you look at the descriptions here and see if that's what you're looking for, and it's normally volume A and volume B, right? Okay. So I go and I look at the ISBN, so on and so forth, and then I find it, boom, there it is, okay, good. So now, when I do this, I can explore around this particular textbook, about the book, features, so on and so forth, you know, it's got all this information here. But what I am most interested in is this section at the top that says for instructors. Okay, so I click on that and it takes me down to where it says request exam copy. That's great and wonderful, but I already have a copy, so I don't really need that. Learning tools, okay, that's great, but I'm not really interested in learning tools just yet. What I'm interested in is right here where it says instructor resources. Yeah, so I click on instructor resources, and it looks like it's taking me back to that original page, but it's not. Now it's very different. What you have now is this information that talks to you about an interactive instructor's guide. It talks about guide for teachers. Then at the bottom, it says course packs, and that's what you want. Now, remember before, like at the very beginning, I talked to you about how we have different course packs for different LMS systems that we use. So here's a Blackboard 9 one, here's a Desire to Learn, here's Moodle, oh, and there's Canvas right there. And again, just like McGraw-Hill, it answers the question, how do you actually install this course pack into your Canvas shell? So now, I have not logged in. So it's asking, you know, I have to request access, okay? Now after I log in, if this works, okay, good, because I do not remember my password. Okay, good, so I'm in, great. So now, once I refresh this screen, notice now instead of saying request access, it says download, okay? That's what it's gonna say for you once your, account is approved. And normally, like I said, it just takes minutes, they just have to verify that you're not a student trying to get access to this stuff, okay? Alright, what's inside the course pack? Well, you take a look here, you've got lecture slides, possibly. You have got art slides, it says, and you could even have quizzes and a few tests in here as well. Now, this is another thing about these downloads. Okay, if you're on a Mac, you probably need to download Chrome or Firefox in order to download these correctly and import them. If you're on a PC, then more than likely the web browser that you're using will be fine. But Chrome and Firefox are gonna be the best ones to use if you're on a Mac. Alright, so I'm gonna click on this download. Unfortunately, I'm on Safari, so hopefully it doesn't screw up my system, we'll see. By the time, once it downloads, what's gonna happen is, you're going to go, and I'm just gonna pretend like we're doing this, cause it's already in my course shell. I'm going to go into my Canvas shell, jsuinstructor.com, there it is. Okay, and when I do, I'm going to click on the course that I want to download this course pack into. Then I'll go into my settings. And just to get the full effect of this, let me change this over. I think I'm still logged in. Yeah, okay. So again, I'm gonna log into my Canvas. Boom, boom, boom. Good. And then I'm gonna choose the course, which mine is American Lit 201. I'm going to scroll down to where it says settings, which is right here. And then at that point, look over to the right. You see where it says import course content. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna click that. And when I do, I have this other window that says content type. Well, I've got a copy of Canvas course export package, unzip, so on and so forth. But then, it's also asking me about, where is it? I think it's Can't Wait. Oh, it might be copy of Canvas course. Let me take a look, hold on one
Yeah, wouldn't that be a pre-existing course?
It
you
is,
have?
yeah, that's pre-existing. Tommy Parker, one. Okay, now this is odd, because normally, it would say something about a course pack in there, see, as you can see, I've already done one here. Well, you know what? Let's do this. I love this idea. So if we sign in, and at the bottom of our Norton's page, there's something that says, how do I import? So let's just click on that and see what it says. There it is. How do I install a Canvas course pack? So, download your Canvas course pack file. Okay, so we did that. Then it says log into your account. We did that. On the settings, click import content into this course. Okay. We did not see import content into this course, did we? Unless it's back here. Okay, well, import course content. All right, so now it says, this opens a page where you see, where you'll select your file type. Okay. Then it says, in the content type field on the next page, select Canvas course export. Yeah, that was right, Canvas course export package. So yeah, it was there. Boom. Now we choose that file. Since most of the time, I know on Macs, it will go to your downloads folder. On PCs, I think it goes to your downloads folder as well. This one has navigated to the desktop, but wherever it's going to be is where you will navigate to. And then you click on it, and what happens next is, it will start to download into your Canvas shell. Now, when it does, understand that it's gonna dump everything in there, right? And we talked about the last time where you don't want to just dump everything in, enable it all, and then just go. So you have to go in and make sure that the files you want that visible are actually visible, and the ones that you want the student not to access are actually not accessed. So for me, notice that all my files are locked, so students can't see them. But what they would look like, you can see here I have a PDF of Mary Rollison, I've got a couple of tests in here.
Where?
Do it now?
Where?
In my files, right here.
Are you checking that, we can't see that on the screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry, what am I thinking? I feel schizophrenic, I'm going back and what did I do? So all I did was I clicked on file, and then when I did, you can see these files here. Now to show you what they would look like inside Canvas itself when they're enabled, I'm gonna go to modules, and let me go to, here we go. Oh, that's a quick, period introduction overview. Okay, so this was imported in, and take a look, it's text,
That's imported in from the Norton?
yes,
Man, that is
That's super convenient.
very easy.
yeah, very much so, very much so. And you remember when I said that if you wanted to customize this, you could? Okay, so I went a step further, I said, okay, you know what? I think what I wanna do, just in case the students need a little bit more information, I'm gonna add a PDF. So I added a PDF to the bottom, and let's see if it'll actually let me open it here. Okay. This is what the PDF looks like. I mean, it's basically the same information, only there's a little bit more supplemental information added to it. So I could do that if I wanted to. Again, that's just adding a little bit more of customized information to what the course pack has already imported into the course.
And you said, but when you import the course pack, it dumps all of that in there, and then you're going in and then basically deciding which module to assign it to and how to integrate the rest of it.
Yeah, because when you think about it, the rationale is the course pack's not going to know that you want to teach, let's say, Mary Rollison on week 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just putting the information there for you to go ahead and spread however you want to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Let's take a look at, let's see here, see if there are any quizzes in here, I'm sure there are, because I have several. Here we go. So let's see what the quizzes look like. So I have one here that's, 10 questions. And if you can see, yeah, this on screen. This looks exactly like what your normal Canvas test creation would look like. When I go to edit, I go to questions. There are my questions. And look, if I wanna alter, just like in regular Canvas, if I wanna alter the point value, if I wanna even alter the question, if there's something on there that's not quite correct, or I feel it might be a little bit not necessarily appropriate for this particular lecture, then I can go in and I can change it. I can change all this. Same thing. Now you can choose between multiple choice, you can choose between, I think, the true, false, and I think that there are a few questions, if you would like, that are open-ended, so you can do discussion. I've even put tests in here like this. Like here's my test 2. And take a look, I actually had 2 students that needed to make it up. Okay, so I did that. I customized it to make sure that the correct answers were actually hidden until everyone took it, you know? But let's say I wanted to go in and edit some of it, I mean, I could do that just like I did before. There's my students, and then these are my questions. And right now, what you see, let me open this, you can see what this looks like. I might have deleted that one. Let me go to edit, cause I think one of these is actually matching. Yeah. So these you're matching. And then I showed you what the multiple choice ones look like. I don't necessarily like to do true false questions just because I feel like I'm tricking the student. But I mean, that's just me. But if I wanted to add a true false question from the pool, I could do that. Or if I wanted to create my own true false question, just like in Canvas, then I could do that as well. Okay. So that is Norton's. Now, another thing about this, what I've just shown you is basically something that is automatically imported in. But let's say that you have something that you want to import, but unfortunately it's only for Blackboard, right? And obviously we're using Canvas. Well, you saw on this other import page, if I go back to it here, where you have the option of importing something from all of these different LMS systems. You can do Blackboard 6, 7, 8, 9. You could do Blackboard Vista CE or WebCT, because I know some schools that use WebCT. You could even use Desire to Learn, that's what this is, or Moodle. And you also remember on our Norton's page, we saw Moodle as a download. You know, or if you have what's called a QGI zip file, you could put those in there as well. So you have a lot of options here. So just in case you find something that you want to use, but it's not applicable or it's not accessible through Canvas, you can actually download the Blackboard course shell and just import it in. Now, it may behave a little differently, meaning that you may have to do a little bit more manipulation of the content, but I mean, that's just a couple of extra steps, right? Okay. So there's that. So what questions do you all have about this?
Maybe I'll ask again, just like how you use it. It seems like, you do a mix of importing, say like lecture material, like
Yes.
informative stuff, but, you also like to rely on, I mean, I love the idea that these quizzes and test questions are already designed.
Yes.
So you do a mix of both of those?
I do, actually, and it won't show here, but what I normally do is I'll do kind of like a pre-test. In fact, I thought I saw my pre-test in here, but I guess it's not. But I'll do a pre-test just to see what the students know at the beginning of the semester.
Mhm.
And like Susan said, you know, I have some analytics that I can look at that are built into Canvas, so I go, okay, well, no, they don't really know when, you know, Mary Rose and blah, blah, blah. So then that gives me a better idea of what I need to kind of reinforce in my lecture courses, right? So that's me doing that. Now, it's taken from some of the questions that are already built in, but then I'll add my own questions, you know. So yeah, absolutely, it's a combination of both. Okay, so there's that. Now, there's one more that I wanna show you, that again, you know, I told you some of them are completely independent from Blackboard, and you have to populate the grades manually. The ones that we've seen so far are the ones that you can do automatically. Oh, you know what, there's one more I forgot that I need to show you as well. And I think I can do that from here. If we go into settings again, and we go to navigation, note that we have another LMS here from Cengage. Now, if you teach speech or communications, this is something that is very, very useful. I know I use it all the time, it's awesome. Just like McGraw-Hill, this one takes you to an outside source. And then from that outside source, you can program and pool specific questions, assignments, you know, whatever. And then they will, or should, populate into your gradebook. So let me go into my speech class. And we go into settings. Okay, so let's say that I want to import this. Well, I'm going to repeat the same behavior as before, right? I'm going to go into my navigation, and then I'm going to scroll down to Cengage. Well, fortunately, I've already enabled mine because that's what I use for my class, so it's there. All right, and notice after I click save, it's over to the left. So I'm just gonna click on it. So let's see what it looks like. So now take a look. Every single unit that has that's inside the book. I can add it to my course, and then I can also add it to my grade book. So the assignments, the questions, and so on and so forth, if I want the students to complete those, all I have to do is click over to the side here, and it will be added. Now, some of these, I have not added all of them just because, but this is how it works. You can do a course score, activity scores, you can score by course, score by activity. If I were to add, let's say maybe, this one, click confirm, let's just see what happens, hopefully it won't mess up my course that much, it's already done, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so it says your import is complete, you should be directed back, okay. Alright, and now, when I go into my modules, I think, yeah, it's already there. So I've got all these different things in here, my chapter 1 homework, so on and so forth, speaking assignments, introductory speech review. Now, some of these, again, because I combine my own content with the book, the publisher content, that's what you see. And in some instances, it will put the publisher content at the bottom. See, imported, and this tells you when it was imported.
Right, I just did that.
You did? There you go. So what does this look like? Well, let's take a peek. This tool needs to be loaded. Okay, we'll load it. Okay, well, it says my course is expired, so unfortunately I can't show you. But you notice that it's taking you to an external source, right? This is something that you have to warn the students about, because sometimes on their computers, and maybe even on ours, the security is set so high that it may not allow them to see all of this content. And if they're using a different browser that doesn't support the actual, like Flash, like if they're on their iPad or on their phone, they may not be able to see this. So make sure that they know that they need to be on this specific browser in order to see this content, and their browser needs to be updated to the latest version. I think that will solve a lot of problems as well. Okay. Besides Nick, who else teaches oral communication? Okay, awesome. So we're gonna have you, I think, sign up for this one as well. Now, there is also an external site for this. Now, it's supplemental, but I think it's cool if we show you that one as well. So I'm gonna show that one to you now. Hopefully I remember my password.
Are we gonna talk about Kansas Commons?
Yes, we are. I might let you talk about it.
Two conversations,
actually. Okay, so. Come on. It's okay. There. So I'm gonna go to Cengage.com. Or Cengage, yeah. But sometimes it's called Cengage Brain. A long time it was called Cengage Brain. I don't know what that was about, but anyway. If I click sign in the upper right hand corner, and you'll have to bear with me, because at one time it took me, like, as you can see, 6,000 or 7,000 times to figure out what my password was here. Hopefully this is the right one. Maybe, or maybe not. It might be working. Hey, it worked. Okay, so this is your external site. Now, what I like about this is, first of all, it will show you the textbook, which is the one we're using now. You can manage your course. You can create, again, a completely new LMS inside this website, if you want to do that. Now, I don't necessarily use it for the LMS feature because I already have it inside Canvas, but what I use it for is down here, where you can't see it because this little window's open, but it says Instructor Companion Site. I love this site, and let me tell you why. Because this site has instructor downloads, it has the instructor manual in it, and then it also has MindTap information in there as well, which is a great instructional tool. Again, you have to register and they have to verify your email address, okay? But once you do, you have access to all this stuff. So let's click on instructor downloads to see exactly what it is you get to download. Okay, so they want you to read the important license information. Yes, I accept. Okay, so take a look. So now you have test banks. Wow. Now, you have the test base for Angel, which we don't use, for Blackboard, which we don't use, but we can import. And then you have, this thing called, Verteber Final ACC PowerPoint, and these are all the PowerPoint presentations for each one of those chapters. So we'll do that one first, if it will allow me to download it, which I just clicked on it. Oh, there went something. Yeah, this goes to show you how slow my internet is. If you can see what the bandwidth is, that is ridiculously slow. It's abysmal. I don't know what's going on in here. But anyway, this is going to download as a zip file. Then you automatically open the zip file and it gives you all the PowerPoints for each chapter within the text. Chris?
And so Ron, you're saying that for some reason Cengage has this supplemental material which doesn't immediately import when you do the course pack.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
import, but you can link them together, but you have to actually manually do that.
That's
So-
interesting, okay.
Yeah, and if you want to, that's perfectly fine. You know, Nick, have you had that experience with those?
What was it exactly?
The website itself that we're on right now, linking it to the actual course pack inside of Canvas, have you used that before?
I'm just looking that through again, it's partially.
But you have to manually do that though, you can't just,
Yeah, the question is, I think it boils down to whether to represent the links to the Cengage modules in your own modules and have them open new page,
yes.
or just have them go over to Cengage and do what they need to do, and then come back to your modules for whatever value added you have there.
Alright, but so like these PowerPoints that Rodney just clicked on, is that also part of the course pack?
No, that is not a part of the course pack. You actually have to go to the instructor companion site to download those.
Yeah, so
Now,
there's
and-
Oh,
just some material that you have to seek through the
yeah,
website.
actually, I adapted those and
Yeah,
put them in my own site.
I got you.
And I will tell you this, the bookseller specifically tells us that we should not, they strongly discourage us from uploading these PowerPoints to Canvas and allowing the students to see them. I didn't ask the rationale, I didn't, but they, that is highly discouraged. I mean, I thought, wow, is there something top secret in here? Like, what's the deal?
I used it as a basis for lecture.
Right. But I mean, they're great. I mean, take a look at it. I mean, they're very well done. You've got a lot of information in here that can be used, the student can use. But it's not so much that they're gonna be overwhelmed either. I mean, they're basically just a point of entry for discussion, But they're all there. They're all there. And it's a quick and easy download when you have decent internet access. Okay, I have 6 minutes. Now, I'm gonna talk about the commons. See if I can put this in here. Where am I? Okay. Now, Susan, you've used this before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Import from commons? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
gonna-
I store stuff in the commons as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Susan talk about this. You can talk about it while this is loading, because it's gonna take a hot minute.
So inside of, Canvas, there is something called, Canvas Commons, and Rodney's got it. Will you type the search bar, will you type English
Yep.
there? This is, and I know several of you guys are, dual enrollment teachers, and so what you can do is you can go in here and you can find assignments, pages, lecture notes. If you click on the one that's got the 500 miles, guys, the Proclaimers, if you click on that one,
Which one is that, right here?
yeah, those guys, click on the blue, words.
Yep.
It's got the whole course like already made for you. And a lot of these are geared more towards high school students. So there's even one that I clicked on, I can't find it now, but it had like ACT prep notes that you would need for like the course material that they were presenting for like this one module and stuff like that. So if you were wanting to see like how other people have done it, like at y'all's level, and of course, like I said, I store stuff in there too, and there's stuff for college level that's appropriate. You just kind of have to narrow it down in the search bar, like what you're really looking for. I have my, William Faulkner Rose for Emily lesson and everything in the quiz and the writing prompt stored in there. You just kind of have to know what you're looking for. But this is everybody that uses Canvas, like across the country, as well as you can specify it to just JSU and just kind of find pretty much anything, but yeah, they've got their schedule set out and their assignments, and it's really well done, and
And you can download these
you
as
can
well.
download
if
it
you want
straight to
them.
your course, and then go in and take out what you don't want, or put in what else you need. So that's, if you're worried about getting started and building from scratch, that's a good, like, that's your cake mix, your box cake mix right there, and then you
Yep.
can throw in, you know, your chocolate chips or whatever, your sprinkles, whatever else you need on it.
Yep, and that's called Commons, by the way.
Yeah, so any course that you open, once you get your Canvas, cause I know some of you don't have it, but it's just a button at the very top on the right-hand side. Just right up here, so this is like my 202 course, and I can just click on that, and it'll take me to that screen of all those tiles, and then I can search and narrow it down. But yeah, and there's, AP English courses already built in there, as well as like 8th grade English courses already built in there, so just whatever you can, like, search for, you're gonna find, pretty much.
And this is, I mean, it kinda operates like the course pack where it's modular, I can choose what material I wanna download, right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it downloads as a common.
well, yeah, it downloads like as a thing, but then you can just like go in and click out what you don't want,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yep, like a buffet table.
And it goes for every topic, so there's web communication, there's chemistry, there's whatever else you need.
And so if I wanted just to search for JSU courses, let's go in the search bar, I'll just click in.
You would, the only thing that you're dependent on is that the instructors, loaded it into the Canvas Commons, cause a lot of us just don't think about it, or we don't. And, you know, I've loaded stuff in there and then marked it as private, because I was just trying to share it between like 2 or 3 different courses or whatever else, and it was a quicker way for me to go, so, yeah, you're just dependent on who's decided to share, and it, like I said, it comes from across there. I found stuff in here from Harvard, and stuff in here from, you know, Joe Blow High School out in Arizona, so.
And it's very organized, I mean, over to the left, it shows you, I think, yeah, how many modules there are, assignments, pages, discussions, quizzes, I mean, it's very, very structured. So you can go in and look at what you want to evaluate it, maybe using the tool that I gave you earlier, to see what is actually gonna work best for you, and then just use it.
And how it looks here is how it's gonna look when you, like, upload it into your
Yeah.
course.
Cool. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, I told you we'd save some time at the end, we have like, about 2 or 3 minutes. I want you to go back to either Cengage, or Norton's, or McGraw-Hill if you need to do that. Or even if you want to, work with what was the other one that I said, I can't remember, but anyway, I want you to sign up for the ones that you feel are going to be the best fit for you and your courses. Like some of you may not teach speech. If you don't teach speech, then you probably don't need to sign up for Cengage. Some of you may not teach freshman comp. If you don't teach freshman comp, then maybe you don't wanna sign up for McGraw-Hill Connect or anything like that. But find the one that works best for you. Go ahead and sign up for it now, so that when you start to build your course, you can go ahead, and that will be one less step that you have to go through, and you don't have to wait for them to approve you. You can go in and start downloading the content and working on it. And then I can answer questions if you need questions answered, or anyone in the room about any of these. Yes, sir?
I don't have, well, I'm at this spot here with the McGraw-Hill thing,
Let's see.
create and connect course.
Yeah, okay, so what you wanna do now is, you want to find the actual textbook.
Because I don't teach one,
So you're doing ELC Middle East, so find,
I can find out.
I think it's called, what's our textbook called, McGraw-Hill Handbook, something like that?
Deborah is down the hall, and she'll know.
There it is.
That one, okay,
Yep.
okay,
She'll know
sweet.
specifically if it does or
And
not.
then-
Mhm, mhm.
Operate it. but-
Uh,
I don't,
Yeah, make sure you do the correct time zones and all that, because when they deploy, it's gonna be based on
I don't know.
the time zone
I
that
don't
you
know
select.
what they do in their class.
I'm gonna do 016.
Yep. You're good, man.
Okay, yeah, if I have anything else in mind.
Yeah, it's cool. Yes, ma'am.
So, in order to like access the system, I'm a new hire.
Congratulations, welcome to the family.
Thank you, but they have not completed my paperwork yet,
Right,
it's a waiting game
right.
right now, so am I just kinda stuck until I get that Canvas login?
Yeah, unfortunately, there may be a way for you to create, a guest account of some sort, I'm not sure how to do that, but and plus, I'm not sure if you create that guest account, whether it will port over to your actual JSU account.
What I did last night, I created a free, I just went to Canvas and registered, just so I can play around. I mean, I don't know, but at least I just made like a secret that class, just so.
Yeah, Scott, did you just, see this, or?
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, so it's already built in with our.
I had to reset my password.
Wait, so you don't know if it's supposed to be our credentials through like the JSU account or something?
Apparently it's not.
Oh, so it may have been created with some completely different password?
Yeah, I mean, you could try yours, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, cause then you can just change the password, like you said, right? Yeah, interesting.
It wasn't that big of a deal, it just took 2 seconds that it emailed me.
I'll be stubborn, I'll try it.
Let's see if I'm still rolling over here, I may not be. Don't think I am.
How can we convert, how could we convert that Blackboard test bank? Could we convert that zip file test bank into Canvas?
Yeah, let me show you, I can put on the screen and see it. Susan and I had this same issue, a few years ago, when we moved to Canvas, because we had all of our stuff in Blackboard, I mean, everything.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, you need to take that and convert it, and then import it into Canvas. We're like, okay, what?
With the Canvas.
Yeah, and then we're like, okay, what, how do you, okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do that. I'm gonna have to open some files.
Imagine some kind of, or, .org there with like an online converter or something.
Well, no, actually, it should do it inside of Canvas for you, so
That
now,
would make sense, they'd be hungry to absorb,
yeah.
Blackboard customers.
So look at this file right here, this is for Blackboard 7.0.
Yeah, that's why I right clicked on that, and have it on my desk.
Alright, so I'm gonna download that. And hopefully, it will download like it's supposed to, it looks like
Probably go
maybe.
with your, internet.
I think that's gonna work. Okay, so now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go into, I'm gonna go into Canvas. Yeah, and I'm gonna choose which shell I wanna put this in, I'm just gonna put this in one of my blank ones, there's nothing in here, this is. And then I'm going to go into my settings,
This is pretty much.
and then when I go into settings, the next thing I'm gonna do is go to import course content.
Tweak it, I've already.
And then I'll go to Blackboard 6789 export.
1,000 points and there's a buffet of how you get to.
And then I'm gonna choose my file, which mine should have gone to my downloads folder,
And so forth, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
which I think that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
That looks about right. It may be the other one, but we'll just try this one.
Right.
And then I click open, kinda,
Yes.
and then
So
it's
the
gonna
reason we
ask
don't have it
to
already
select
is because
specific
it's
content if I wanna do that.
on the
Yeah, you can
video,
at least do it
it's
in-
on
Yeah,
the-
and then click import, and then you look at the bottom of the screen and you see it is queued right now.
Yeah, we redid
When
some
you do,
of it because
Canvas,
we took
Canvas,
out the
it's
essay
select.
reader
It says failed, there's one
and
issue.
we,
So it's unsupported content. So that might mean that it was the other one.
and you
You know,
get
it's falling
to pick
off
whatever
the,
it is you
update
want, so it was
grid or
ridiculous for
whatever.
us to keep asking.
But
us to
it's
send, like,
6, 7, 8, 9,
9,
so I'm thinking that it might be the fact that it's this one.
And we made some changes, and so now it's like we're requiring just 4 essays,
3550. Oh, wait, no, these are all three, these are
but
the
they're
same.
longer essays.
That's why.
And so.
I downloaded the
just
wrong
things
one.
like that, so
Hold on.
you will get
If it's the same,
an
it's not
updated version
on
of the syllabus.
Yeah, which
just
one
to
is
see
yours?
what we've got at the final
It's
stage.
inside.
It's saying this is, these are the type of essays we want you to decide, this is what we want.
We are.
Well,
leaning
like I said, I
towards
renamed it.
not
So I guess
focusing on
we
like
can
such
see
a
it's
rhetorical
6-3
pattern
or,
as
6-5.
much as discuss all the rhetorical patterns. and
Okay,
have
so
some
the
elements of
last-
them in your
The last
essay.
digits are 6, 5.
But it's not going
Yeah,
to strictly
okay.
be a definition essay.
Go back here.
American trash. You can kind of pull elements.
There's 6, yeah, I was trying to do 5, 8, not 6, 5.
Well, we'll have that, and I
Okay.
think that
And
they,
click import.
Andrea,
Up to
send
those
that
two
out.
other days.
did she?
Well, I got, there was a syllabus, but I didn't,
There.
there was, it's hard on the page.
Now it's working.
It's running, yeah.
Yep.
Or no?
So, oh, it says failed, well, let's see why it failed.
But yeah, go get some, are you a new hire here at?
I am.
on campus?
Unsupported content package, okay.
Jessica, I'm so
Well-
sorry.
I remember opening it up. year ago.
I did
It was
receive
like
a couple of
XML, and I was just like, no.
Yeah, that's certainly
But I'm
not
also,
what
I'm
you want.
doing
So I wonder
one
why
on
it's
two
doing that.
of the American Lit and speech, so.
Well, sit down.
And I'm teaching AP English and Standard
Yeah.
English, so like, it's just.
I haven't gotten that
Yeah,
far,
four
I'll think on it too.
But,
Yeah, let me know, cause
I'm
I'll see what I can do to find out for you.
is there anything I could
Hey.
get, to help me with the American Lit course?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah,
still
you
buy.
Christy still.
Yeah, you just, I mean, your syllabus.
You can also ask either of us, you do more than I can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do the
We bo-
American Lit as
We
well.
both do American Lit too. So,
So they,
I would like to know like kind of what authors you're focused on, or what,
it is your choice,
kind of whatever, okay.
what you're most comfortable with, don't, especially if like, what did I count, 5 classes, and then the AP and the whatever, and the core.
Yeah.
Realize all.
I hit the, high notes.
Try not to think about it too much.
Just hit the high notes.
and yeah, I mean, like, I know I end up teaching some stuff that probably some other people wouldn't focus on because
Yeah.
it's closer to my area
Yeah.
of study and stuff like
And like, I'm
that.
gonna spend more time on the creepy stuff, because that's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, I just didn't know if there was stuff I had to make sure I covered.
No, I mean,
Oh, I
like,
was like,
you know,
what's that?
the periods, like,
What
if
do you
you're
got
gonna
stuff
talk about realism and naturalism and
Mhm.
social realism.
I mean, there wasn't a lot
Then,
in there,
you know,
but.
move into
That's great.
modernism and the Western, and blah, 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 blah.
And I have found that people,
Oh, you plug it in.
respond to, at least a little bit
I'm
of,
gonna go.
southern.
Camera's running, it's good, so.
influence
Okay.
In the scheduling, just because of where we're at, so, and, but that's, yeah.
Yeah, cause I have a Southern Lit class this fall for the first time. I'm gonna run, get something on my car for Carly, and I'll be right back, so yeah, everybody has a little anxiety about.
But yeah, if you need anything, you can email Chris or I.
Okay, can I get your email?
Yeah,
I'll be right back, Micah. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'll
you're
put
good,
it
you're
on.
fine. You probably know everything I'm about to tell you, from being honest.
And your name is?
Scott. Yeah, so it's, my email's S.Obernesser, and I'll, Obernesser, and then at JSU.edu.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we're gonna talk about assignments, let me get, just trying to look for one thing. Trying to figure out how to do course packs. I always have to get,
I think so.
it's one of those things that I always find myself in Rodney's office going, remind me how I get this in here.
I totally forgot that, I can't remember his name, he needed a computer. Yeah, he's mine yesterday. And I brought it in here for him today.
Let me ask this question,
Yes, ma'am.
because it's kind of new again at this one. If you have an assignment, this is a quiz, but if you have an assignment in the, like, assignments category, where you did not have given it, and it is, if it's not published here, even if it's just in here, it doesn't populate the grade book, does it?
Mhm.
Okay, so as long as it's not published, it's populated in.
No, it should not.
Okay.
Right,
We may have told, I may have.
Yes, sir.
Have
I have
to
one
tell
more
somebody
quick
else.
question, too.
Okay.
Okay.
So I went to the Norton stuff and requested, instructor access, it says it's pending,
Yeah, you'll do that.
I was just waiting on that until it
You
sends
do.
me something in the email, basically.
Yep, they'll send you an email saying congratulations, you've been verified,
Okay,
and then you log back in, and instead of saying request, it will say download at that point.
okay,
And then
and I don't
you
have to
just-
contact anyone on campus to like verify it or something?
No, they do it automatically.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
I'm doing good.
Cengage is asking for.
Okay.
That will be, Andrea.
Susan, who else
Yeah.
are we missing?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
You having the same problem?
How
Yeah.
was-
Okay, I'm off.
Okay, I know Susan just walked out, but we're gonna go ahead and get started, because she's gonna know how to do all this.
Is that the only person we're writing on? Chris is not in here. Is he sitting behind you, Scott?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not, and there's someone else
Okay,
here
well then
too.
we'll wait just a second, cause we got three out. Never mind. I need to. So now, I know Scott, I know you've probably done this, but do you, for y'all that I don't know as well, have y'all created any, do y'all have any familiarity with any assignments in Canvas or anything like that, creating anything like that? Okay. Christy, I think told that wrong. I don't think if those assignments are in the assignments area and they're not published that they'll show. Like I looked and I had a whole bunch that were there that did not show.
See, mine do. Because I went to my,
Well, I looked in quizzes, cause I really didn't have, so I don't know if it's
I went
different
to,
for that.
these were actual assignments where they had discussion board take assignments with my technical writing class last semester where, you know, when pandemic happened, we had to.
And
change
so when that
things.
I think it's, I
And
thought we
I
gotta play with that more to figure that out exactly.
I will look into it too, but just like on my quick look, when I looked, I went to that because I knew I had some unpublished assignments. And I know that they're all there and they're at the end of I have 3 there that are at the end of the grade book and they're not published. And that's all it shows is unpublished.
See, here's the thing, like when I'm looking at like, for example, this.
Oh, but you know what, I didn't go to student view, I don't know if they're viewable to students. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
when I'm looking at this, like I have imported assignments here and all of those are not deployed. And when I go to my grades,
Well, maybe it's because
those
before,
are not in there.
maybe it's because I had published them before and then I unpublished them. You think that could be it?
I don't know that I do. I'm not sure, we can look at it at the end, like, it's something that I wanna know now, but I'm not positive on that question now. I'm not as confident as I was a minute ago.
Well, me either now.
Cause Rodney said like if they shouldn't show up if they're not published, but I feel like sometimes they do. I'm like you, I do think they do occasionally. Okay, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna talk about creating assignments. This is definitely something, and listen, I'm sorry, Christy, I will try not to monopolize the time in here. It just happens with who I am as a person. So I'm trying to go through this fast enough that she has plenty of time to talk about rubrics as well. So what we know about Canvas, you're gonna have to create an assignment at some point. If you're going to go digital and you're going to have to do all of your assignments now through digital means, you're going to have an assignment where points are evaluated and calculated through the assignment. They have to submit stuff online. Rodney is supposed to at some point email you the PowerPoints, the one from last time, and then this one as well. And those stats are still clickable for you. Like we have one here, just 2 general tips on creating assignments in Canvas, and there's a couple of other hyperlinks throughout the PowerPoint that will take you to more specific information about each of the things that I'm talking about, and then you can get this PowerPoint and kind of go back through it maybe as you're creating your assignments. Okay, so what to start with? Everything starts with assignments in your Canvas course. This is where everything will get into the gradebook. If you have used in the past something like Blackboard, it did a lot of the heavy lifting in the gradebook, and you really do the gradebook and create your columns in there, manually figure it out there, but that is not how Canvas works. If you want something to get into the gradebook, you either have to create an assignment or a quiz, okay? And when you create an assignment, it will automatically populate to your gradebook. That is where students will go and see that assignment. It will populate into that gradebook. Assignments, when you create them, clicking the due date, that is how students will see it in their calendar. So if you want students to have access to know when those things are upcoming in their calendar, you have to set that feature available inside of the assignment. It is also, if you remember when we looked at the Canvas feature, the syllabus feature, and it showed like the links at the top, and then it had that kind of like a listicle looking thing that had like all the dates of when things were gonna be upcoming, and then the whole list of like hyperlinks of like here are all your assignments in like one big list, because like on the calendar you're looking at just 1 month and it's on the different days they're assigned. Some students may enjoy looking at that in like one list. My brain functions better that way. If you want it to get into that list, again, it has to be a due date, it has to be assigned to that, and it has to be an assignment for it to be on that list. So you can select in assignments various types of files that you need and various types of submissions. if you're a face-to-face class, because I mean, we know that we're probably gonna be very much online, and I meant to tell the other classes, and I really didn't, I think it was something to remind you, you know, even face-to-face classes this year are going to function very, very heavily online. You really can meet those classes, you know, you must meet them at some point, but that does not mean that you must meet them every week. And you're going to do a lot of your stuff online. And also, when you create assignments for students or whatever, it's just a good reminder that those assignments that you create don't have to be done on the day and time that your class would meet. That's kind of the whole point of online, really. So don't feel like, you know, we really kind of don't want it to be that way in some ways. If your class meets Monday and Wednesday from 1:30 to, you know, whatever time that class ends, or 1:45 to 3:15 or whatever, your assignment doesn't need to be necessarily due, like, you don't have to require them to be in that class, turning in that assignment between that time on that day. That is something that you probably are gonna wanna give them more flexibility on. And so, like for me, I tend to have like a Sunday night or a Monday morning due date for most things. And it gives them time to work through their stuff. Because an out of class, you know, for a blended class, and out of class days and assignments, don't confuse it with just like homework. Homework is like, you know, just work on this. You're creating content that they're gonna work through. You know, maybe they're watching videos, maybe they're doing other things. But just kind of wanted to make sure that you knew that, you know, we're not necessarily saying like your assignment must be due at the date and time that your class meets, and only inside those parameters. You have some flexibility with that, with these blended and the online classes. Okay, so something else here, you can select the various types of submissions, and you also can weight your grades, and you can create categories or group types with assignments. So that means, you know, you think of it like, how would you categorize, you know, where you want your grades to be assigned. I weight all of my grades. Sometimes some people will simply do like, we have 1,000 points possible, you have to have this many points to have an A, B, and so on. My brain, again, does not work that way. I like a weighted grade. I like to tell a student that your minor writing isn't gonna be as, you know, hard on you as your major writing. Your quiz isn't gonna take off as many points as your test, right? And so, while I may calculate them both at 100 points, I don't want them to be of equal value, and so I weight grades. So I'll show you how to do that if you wanted to consider doing that. And then students can submit texts, documents, you know, audio files, video files. They can submit from OneDrive directly and upload. You can also do Google Form, you know, Google Drive if you use that too. Although I definitely recommend using OneDrive because that's what they all have. And I think it's consistently better to do. I know some of you might like Google in your real life, and you may use that more. Especially, you know, like I know in the school systems, my son works in Google. You know, they work in Google Drive. That's how he did online schooling. That's what he submits things through in his regular life. But with the JSU account, they all have OneDrive, and that seems to work really well, and it kind of is a consistent thing they'll experience across the board, so I feel like it gets them kind of in that groove for that. Assignments are not student viewable by default. Let it stay that way. Remember that kind of analogy we had of, you got your filing cabinet that has every assignment for the whole year in it. You know, all the things that you come up with, you file those away. You're not gonna look at your student and go find today's assignment in the filing cabinet. You're probably gonna give them packets of like, here's this week's assignments, you know, now find your assignment for today in the weekly pack. And that's much easier for them to figure out. So in the same way, you're not gonna allow the assignments feature to be available to them. Instead, you're gonna deploy your assignments in your course modules. That's like those digital binders that they have that kind of creates really like a little repository of information for however you unit those out or separate those out. So you don't wanna let them see that. Same thing is true with pages, with quizzes. You want to also keep those not viewable to students and put those in your modules. Do you have any questions yet? Okay, so here is, and you can see you have a link, takes you to learning more about creating assignments, and give you 4 screenshots. And if you're close enough, you can kind of see this. If not, when you email this out, you can kind of open it up and look at it a little closer. The first one, I had just showed you like in the corner. You see that, just like where I have assignments, and it's not viewable. You know it's not viewable because it has a little eyeball with a slash in it. So that's your symbol that tells you. In this second, this is an actual module from my Harry Potter class And now I have, the assignments, notice the header, I just created that as one of those features because I like to kind of divide my content up in my modules so it's easier for the eye to kind of break apart. But that's not necessarily anything with the assignment, that's just the little divider header feature. But then you have the two assignments here. It has a little icon of the paper with a pen through it, that's how you know it's an assignment and not a page. A page is very similar. When you create a page, it just doesn't have a link for them to submit something. Everything else about it is pretty much the same in the creation of it. It's just there's nothing for them to submit. I have accidentally created an assignment before the page, and then they're like, "We can't submit anything." I'm like, "Oh, that's my fault," you know. And I had to fix it. So just know the difference of that. And then the little buttons to the side, you have the green with the check mark. That's how you know if it's published. Can everyone see it? And if that's not checked, they can't see it. And then you also have the three dots here that Christy told me was called the hot dog, apparently, in Canvas trainings. And
Apparently, some people are calling it that, so.
that's right. You have the three dots there. That is, you could click those three dots and you could go in here and kind of retitle that. You could adjust the title of that assignment name there. So if you set a due date, the other great thing about it is it does populate that due date in kind of small print right under it, so it's just another easy place for them to look at it and go, oh good, this is due June 1st. I don't have to, when was that due? You know, kind of add that in anywhere else separately, it'll show. And it shows the points value as well. Two other things on this. So on the bottom, this is a shot of, if you've gone into assignments here, because remember, you can create assignments in two different places. You can go into the assignments feature that you have closed to them, but you can go in there and it would look kind of like this, and you can create your assignment in that feature, okay? Now, mine has these sort of, it almost looks like modules, it has these separate headings, but normally when you first get your class, it will only have one called assignments, one category. I have added multiple categories, and my category is discussions, you know, participation grades, unit responses, Flipgrid, whatever. But when you add categories, then as you assign the assignment a category, it will place those in those category areas. If I had not created that, it would just all be in the you know, default assignment category.
So that's what you meant on the previous slide of these assignment groups. You have to go into the assignment
Yes.
tab to create headers of like, because I like that you have a participation grade.
Yes.
You can designate the assignment within Canvas of like, this is just for complete or incomplete.
Yes,
Participation.
absolutely. And that's another thing is when you create the assignment on your participation grade, you can assign it like an incomplete complete. It doesn't have to be like a letter grade necessarily,
Exactly.
right? And other things
Yes.
can be, you know, out of points.
I might mention at this point, I'm not an expert on it by any means, but I do a pure point system. I had it in my mind, and it turned out to be a little rough in Canvas, but, if you're interested in the pure point system, I learned a thing or two with it.
Yeah, I definitely don't do that. I like weighted grades. I just feel like it's a fair feature for students to not expect their first essay to be of the same value as their last essay in my class. I mean, and I like to kind of do those individual weights, like this essay is 7% of this total essay grade, and this last essay is 15%, you know, whatever. And so when you're looking at this feature and you have the assignments tab here and you go into that, you see you have at the top, you have two buttons. One says group and one says assignment. If you want to create the assignment in the assignments content area of your menu, you just click the assignment and it takes you to that, what we'll look at in a minute, the how to create the assignment, all the information you add to it, whatever. If you want to put your assignments into groups or like categorize them, right? You know, how you want to assign your grades. So maybe on the syllabus you tell students, your grades are going to be based off of a major project, 3 exams, and quizzes, you know. Those could be your different categories. And that's how they would know kind of where their points may come from. That's how I did it. And so you would click group, and it would have a little box that would say like group name, and you would create as many groups as you wanted, right? However many, and you can even modify, like I could go in here and change the name of the one that they've already kind of given us. If you create the assignment, it always defaults into just their standard assignments box, but you can change that if you want to. And then you create the group, you add the name of it, and then over here there's the three dots, and when you select that, it allows you to add percentages to those groups. And the percentages are where you can decide, like I want 25% of my totals to come from discussion boards. I want 10% to come from participation grade. And we're talking out of that 100% total of what your class value will be, right? And then when you're looking at this, when I make the assignment, I can assign what group it's gonna go in there when I make the assignment. Or if I forget and I don't assign the group in that place, I can just come in here to assignments and I can manually drag and drop. And sometimes that's easier for me. Like if I created a bunch of assignments and I kind of forget, sometimes I just come in here and I look at them like, where do I want these to go? And I just kind of drag and drop them. Blackboard used to be a little easier to work in that way. It kind of had a feature where you could pull up all your assignments and you clicked and then, you know, you could hide and change. And if you're not familiar, if you kind of came from Blackboard and you're going into Canvas, that was something to me a little bit to figure out. So I felt like I was like, I can't manipulate where my grades go as well. And you can, you just have to do it through assignments. You can't go in and create, you know, those weights actually in the grade book. You have to create those weights in your assignment categories. Does that make sense? Kind of, okay. And then over here, this is what it looks like if you create your assignment not here, but you actually go into your course module to create your assignment. So I didn't go into like my standard assignments thing to make all my assignments. Like I'm working in my module for this week and I'm gonna go ahead and add an assignment in there. And that's really where I usually create mine. And so this is what a module would look like. This is from my Harry Potter class. This was Prisoner of Azkaban, The Serious Thing Time is what it was called. And you could click this plus button in the top and that will pull up a box that looks like this. And you select here, there's kind of a scrolling button here, and you have different options there that you can choose from. When you click, like when that scrolling, you can choose from like discussion board, assignment, and now, you know, all these different things. When you land on assignments, it puts this little box below it where you can either pull assignments that you have created here. So if I created my assignments in this area, that's how I pull them into my module. I pick one that I've already created. So for me, I could have created my sorting ceremony where I sorted them into their houses here, and I could pull that assignment in from over here. Or I can create my new assignment here in the module. And you just click new assignment, it tells you to title it, and then you just go into that and you open that assignment up and you start editing it. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of. So when you open up and the assignment, this is kind of just a bigger view of the assignment. So like we're still in that assignments tab. This is just a little bit cleaner looking, larger view, because I know that's hard to see on that last one. So this is the assignments. Now this is from a class coming up this fall, so it hasn't anything in it yet, it's empty. So there's nothing in here, and this is what it will look like. When you go into your classes that are blank, your Canvas shells, this is what you're gonna see when you go into your assignments. There's nothing here. You can add your assignments here and start creating those assignments there. That doesn't work for me as well because it's like I have to know exactly what my assignments are, where I'm gonna put them. I work better by looking at my modules and deciding where I wanna create assignments, whatever. And then you create your groups here. You click group, and that's where you can have more than just the standard assignment group there. And notice, like, when you go into it, there's no weight attached to that. So if you're going to do a pure point system, you just leave that alone. You can still create groups, you just don't have to assign them any points, you know, any weighted grade percentages. So that's just kind of up to you on how you decide to do that. Next, so this is what the assignment looks like when you actually edit it. So when you get the assignment and you make it, it will give you, like, I didn't even include a screenshot of this, but, you know, if I title my assignment sorting ceremony, you know, whatever, I have them click features and that, whatever, it would just have the title, and if I don't have any content in that yet, I haven't made anything yet, it'll just simply have a title sitting there when I open it and it just is blank. So you click on the document and you choose to edit it. There's a button that says edit. It's real easy to follow. You just click the edit button. When you edit it, this is what it looks like. And so the features that you can see in this, first you have the 3 buttons at the top, and in edit mode, this is where you could delete an assignment. So let's say you've created an assignment you don't want anymore, and you don't want it even housed in your, because you could leave it there just unpublished, and nobody would see it. I don't like that. I like my stuff to be clean. I can't stand to have things there that, that's just who I am as a person. And I'm like, I'm not using it, I want it out of here. And so you will not delete that from Gradebook. right? And you're not, you come here and you edit it, and you open it up to edit it, and that's where you could delete the assignment as a whole. Maybe it didn't work, you don't wanna do it, you're not gonna use it anymore. Then you see next that says not published, and it has like a little line through it. If, that's where you will see, when you save the assignment, you choose whether you wanna publish it or not, and that just kinda lets you know, like, hey, this has not been published yet. Students have not been able to see this yet, but you can still edit assignments even if, you know, you have already published it. You can still go in there and edit those things, and it will notify students. Then you have the title, and then you have your text box. So now, I'm gonna show you in a minute the bottom half of what this screen looks like on your computer, you know? But in the text box, you have a couple of features. You have the HTML editor. You're probably not ever gonna use that. That is where, when I told you I felt real fancy that day and I made my own tabs, and I was all proud of myself, and I like coded, not that I know a thing about it, but by gosh, I figured it out. That's what I did. I used the HTML editor to open up, like copy and paste those codes in there. It does work. You can, you know, and there are some fancy schmancy things that you can figure out, but you're gonna go down a rabbit hole of time to do that. And that may not be something you probably wanna mess with, but you could look into it. I will say, like, for example, sometimes I use Sway instead of PowerPoint, and if you go into the HTML editor and you paste your Sway link in there, it will automatically populate, like when they go into it, it just automatically comes up in Canvas, and it looks so much more seamless. And so when I use a Sway instead, because I think it has some cooler features than PowerPoint sometimes, I'll use the HTML editor, and that was just a trick that Alan Gilbert told me to do, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, and that's just what I do now. But that's the only time I've ever used that, really. Then you have these little feature buttons in your text box. The first one is where you can record or upload a media. The record means either like it'll pull it up and you can choose to record something, and it'll access like the camera in your laptop, and you can record something like from there. Or if you've saved something, like you did on your QuickTime player or something like that, you saved it on your computer, you can just, it has like two tabs, record, and then one says like browse. And you browse and pull up something you've already done before. So maybe in your assignment, you want to give them video instructions. That's one way you could embed that video instruction for them. Then next to that, you have this little V. That is where you can either upload content from OneDrive, and you just click that and it takes you right into you just click OneDrive, it'll take you into your OneDrive account. OneDrive is kind of like the cloud version of Microsoft Office, right? Like where all your stuff goes. I make my students save all of their papers to OneDrive, especially like if we're in class, you know, if we're blended or lecture, because they can't say the whole, I forgot my paper. I'm like, it's mandatory, it's in OneDrive. So you can always pull that up and access it. They must do it. It is a mandatory thing for me. And I make them upload those from OneDrive so that I can see that they're gonna have them. And that may not be as necessary now if we're not needing to pull those up in class because we're not sitting next to each other in peer editing or whatever, but it's still something that can be useful or beneficial. It's also where you can pull OneDrive, you go to your OneDrive and you pull the stuff you've got saved there that you're wanting to deploy for this assignment. That's where you link that in. And you can also create Teams meetings links there. You just kind of follow the instructions. You click that, it'll take you to Teams, you sign in, and it says create a meeting link. So if you want to have a synchronous meeting with your course and you want to use Teams to do it, which is an easy, great feature, I like it better than like Zoom, for example. That's where you make that link that deploys to them in one place as an assignment.
Would that be if part of an assignment like a project is kind of collaborative, where they're going to have to on their own do a team session with like 2 or 3 group members?
I've never made this one that works like that, but yeah, I think you could do that. And what you could actually do too, I think, is also maybe if you've created that assignment to have the group assignment feature where you put students in a collaborative group, grading wise, that might be a cool thing to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you I've played with that enough to know, just because
You mean like how the grade could apply,
to everybody
same
in the
grade
group.
to everybody in the group, yeah.
Now, here's the thing I wouldn't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done that, so I mean,
Yeah.
they would still all have the same link, I would imagine, like, right, because it would send out
Right.
one thing here, but like, so I mean, but you have to play with it, but let's say you want to send out a meeting link, you're like, we're gonna have a Teams meeting. You know, everybody's gonna meet on Teams or whatever, that's where you can set that link up and they can go there to get that, and it's kind of standard, it's in the assignment, and it would populate in a grade book. I mean, yeah, you would do something from that would involve a grade, that you would put a grade into your grade book for. So that's a kind of a cool feature you can try. And then next thing you have your Kaltura symbol. That's where you add that video, so that you're not just simply adding it from like My Media or whatever, and they'll have to pick it out of the gallery. That's where you pick the exact video you want them to watch, and it goes into the assignment. And then the next symbol, you got the little embed a photo symbol, and then you've got this little mathematical looking symbol. You'll never need this. That's how to add in a mathematical equation. That probably doesn't apply to most of us, and I don't think you'll ever use that one. Beside that, you have your embedded or uploaded image, and then you have the 2 links to add or remove a URL link. I use that one every day, all the time, right? So you're adding in, go to the site and read, and you can add it, and then it'll say link, and you can retype whatever click here, or the name of the file, and it's hyperlinked, so they know to click on it. And then your insert media, and you can add a table there, and then you have your adding your points at the bottom. So there's a lot of features in creating it. You also have on the side, like if you're looking at this full screen of creating an assignment, links, files, and images, you can pull from things that are elsewhere inside of your Canvas shell and have that just kind of like shortcut added in here. So if I had a PDF I had uploaded in my files, then I can click on that and it will automatically put that here. And they can, I'm like, read this PDF blank, and then do these things. You also have links, so I might be able to link them, go to this module, look at X, Y, and Z, go to this, this page, and inside of Canvas, read this, and then do these things. And so link would send them as like a shortcut to sort of somewhere else inside the course. It just links it there neatly. And then images, same thing. Like you can add an image from here, but you can also go right here and add an image that maybe you've saved in your class or something that you browse. And browsing sometimes is something other people have used in like kind of Canvas public area, or you upload or whatever. And then at the bottom, so you have, let's go to the next one. So this bottom section, you add your value of your assignments and points. Next, you have the assignment group. So that's back to like how you get it into those group categories, how you put your assignment, if you make that inside maybe the module and you need to figure out where you want it to sit, then you add the group there. It'll just show you all the group options that you have. Display your greatest points. That's where, I don't have a screenshot of that, of all your options. I mean, it has like percentage, incomplete, complete, letter grade, whatever. That's where you choose that. If you don't want it to count towards the final grade, you can click that button, and sometimes these things will like prompt you more information. Submission type. So the type of submission, and I've got a couple of slides coming up that shows these things kind of like each of them click, so it shows what the drop down box looks at. Submission type is, let's say it's a face-to-face class and you took a participation grade. And it really is not based off of they turned something in or they had something to go online. I played a game with y'all in here. I played Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit, and I'm gonna count this as a participation grade. I'm gonna give all you credit for being in here and doing it. I don't know. There's no submission to that. I just kind of wrote down everybody who's here. I'm gonna give you all credit. So there's not a link for them to turn in, but I need it to still be in my grade book, right? And so I might just put no submission. Here's the other thing. You could create an assignment that you didn't let them see. So maybe I don't want to confuse them, and if I let them see the assignment, they're like, I can't click into it, there's nothing to submit. I'm like, there's nothing to submit because you didn't turn anything in, but they have a hard time finding that, realizing that. And so I'm like, no, remember we played that game in class and I gave you 10 participation points for it? I may make this whole assignment not viewable ever. I just did it so I could get into my grade book, and I put no submission on it, and then I just went back, and it's just kind of like a place to file their grade. Does that make sense? So that's another feature of why you might do that. But it has other types of submissions. We'll look at them. If you did a group assignment, that is different than an assignment group, if that makes sense. So an assignment group is where you categorize what your assignment type is. But if you had a collaborative assignment, and I want 5 groups, and I'm going to put 5 students in 5 groups, whatever. Then I could create a group assignment, and you click on that, and then it'll pop another box up, and you'll have other things to follow. And I could choose to create multiple groups. I can, let them pick their groups. I title how many group sets I need, and then they can, I say I want 5 slots in each group, and they manually sign up. And once one's full, they have to go look for another group. or I can have it split them just based on how many people are in the class, or I can manually do it if I'm like, I know I want you and I know I want you in a group together for some reason, you know, then I can manually assign those things as well. And if you do group assignment, then one person is in charge of doing the thing or turning something in, for example, and when I assign a grade to one member of that group that maybe I designate as the leader, everybody gets the grade. And then there are ways to go back and adjust that for the individual student who like never showed up or didn't do their thing, right? Okay, you have peer review. Really never use that feature. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but you can play with that, probably do a couple of Google searches. And I do have a little drop down box that shows you what it looks like, where you can assign the peer review groups. They can do it anonymously. I just haven't really ever used that. Assigned to is who can see it, and then the due date. That's where you assign the due date that shows in the calendar, syllabus feature, whatever. I'll tell you this, and then below that you have available from and until. That's where you can limit the availability. So it's like I want to show that you can access this today, and you can, you know, but after this day that is gone. You're not gonna be able to see it anymore. For me, I don't ever assign that. I never do the available from until. I just do a due date because, and you can do whatever you want, but because if you just do the due date but you don't do the other, they can still turn it in because you don't make that go away, and it just marks it as late. And I'm just real clear on my parameters. How many days late am I willing to grade this? And at what point am I like, no, sorry, it's 18 days late, I'm not grading it. You know? And so instead of them having to be like, can you reopen that link because I have a doctor's excuse from so-and-so, I'm like, oh, now I gotta go back in. I don't have to worry about that. Hey, I looked at my grades the other day and I saw that somebody had submitted an assignment after I'd already posted grades. I was like, sorry, too late. You know, they can submit it up until the very end from day one if you didn't close it and it just had a due date, but you don't gotta grade it. You see how late it is, and you can set those parameters and decide that. And then at the bottom, save and publish. Save it, you can work on it later, but they can't see it. Publish it, they can see it. Okay, so creating the assignment, you have two boards here, and again, there's links in here. This just shows you, again, the category groups. That's, you know, where you pick where to put those. And then the type of submissions. No submission, online submission, on paper submission, and external tool. That's also where, if you're going to assign an external tool assignment, so like, for example, when I had Flipgrid assignments, I did that as an external tool. I chose Flipgrid, and that's what pulled it in as an assignment. And so this would be the same as if you were doing it like with McGraw-Hill Handbook. Like if you were doing an assignment that you're deploying through McGraw-Hill Handbook and you want to show up in your assignments, but you do that, and then it just gives you this list, and you find the name of the external tool you're looking to use, and then you assign it that way. If it's online, and I don't have a screenshot of it, but if it's online, it will give you the option of like text, audio, file, which file you want to use, all files. You can restrict it if you only want to let them use a .doc or a docx, for example. If you want to let them upload a media file, it gives you all those different options so that you can kind of allow them different ways to upload. Okay, this is just kind of the same thing, showing you a little bit more of a kind of close version of what these things look like. Here are some links, and so I'm trying to not monopolize all of Christy's time. I'm going through this kind of fast. If you have a question about it at the end, I can come back and look at it with you. These are links if you had more questions about assigning groups, like where you wanted a bunch of students to all get one grade. I created a couple of links here to help you because that could take a while. That takes a lot of time to explain. There's a lot of kind of steps figuring that out the first time you ever use it. If you need help creating the course group, like my group of 5 that I want all the people to participate in, we just assign one grade. I use this in speech. When I have a speech that students are doing a group speech, and I'm sitting there grading them in like real time, and I don't want to have to go in there and say the same comments to all 5 of them. So I make a group, and they're all in it, and then I'm doing that, and it sends that out to everybody in that group. Click there if you need help, because you have to make like a group set to be able to give them the grade. You can click there for information. If you want help on how to assign that grade in SpeedGrader for a group of students, it would show in the grade book, like everybody assigned in this group will be able to view it in the grade book. Anybody outside of that group will not see it. And when you see it, it will only show the students who were in the group everybody else's grade out. You can't click on anybody else's name, not in that group. Need help grading assignments? and then adjusting for that individual student who doesn't get the same grade as everybody else in the group, that link there will take you to information about that as well. Okay, we're almost done. It's my last slide. And then assignments and gradebook. Christy will really show you this more. She's about to come up here and show you rubrics and how you can go ahead and come pull yours up and kind of get ready if you want to. So this is just a screenshot of what assignments look like when you go into grading and in the gradebook. So this is like, here's my thing. This was an annotated bibliography who the student, for their source for their paper was a Prezi presentation that they found online. And I'm like, well, no. You can't just find some random Prezi out there and call that your source for, you know. And so now I'm real forgiving with them because I'm giving them feedback and I have to resubmit them, right? So I'm like, you know, who created this Prezi? It needs revised. This is not really a source. You can't do this. So I give them that here, and then over here I give them the grade. Now I don't have like a rubric in this. Christy's gonna show you how to do rubrics. I didn't attach one here because I'm just looking to give feedback really. So I'm telling him, you know, you can assign these individual comments to them. Hey, look, Prezi sources, that's not reputable. You can't do that. You need to go out and find the actual sources, whatever. And you can see below he gives me the thumbs up. So they can respond to your comments in the gradebook. And you can send that out. But the cool feature to me is at the bottom right here, you can see when you give a comment in an assignment, it has a little link button, so you can link something in there, like if you're attaching a document. Hey, here's the handout that I have on comma splices, and I noticed you have 43 of them. So I want you to read this handout, please. And I can attach that. Or, hey, I noticed you had 43 comma splices. Here's a great link to the OWL at Purdue or to, you know, Grammar Bites or something. Here's a YouTube video explaining it, and you can actually link the video there too. And I do that sometimes for them if I felt like, hey, you would benefit from watching this. So you can add those there too. And then on the side is where it will show you if it was late, missing, or excused, and those are kind of color coordinated, and those same colors pop up in your gradebook. And so you can know by glancing at it, here's what was late, here's what was missing, you know, here's whatever. And then if you mark it as excused, okay, that's yellow, I've excused that already. Do y'all have any questions about this? I know it was a lot of information. Christy's gonna show you about rubrics. So I'm gonna undo up here, but while she's pulling hers up, you know, some of this is just still trial and error of kind of looking it up as I go to figure it out, but, okay.
So, okay, we're going to talk about rubrics now, and hopefully when you use rubrics, it's going to make grades a lot better for you and for your students both. I mean, number one, it helps you justify, right? Like if somebody doesn't do well, they can actually see and you can explain to them really easily with a rubric why they're not doing well. But not just that, it also helps students to understand. I mean, they might get a 70 and be like, okay, well, I don't understand why I made the 70. But then if you have a rubric and it shows the different point categories and, okay, how much the major errors are worth or how much their heading is worth or how much these different things are worth, and they get to look at it and be like, okay, I get this. And I will never forget that one time when I was in undergraduate school and my advanced grammar teacher, I didn't go here, I went somewhere else, but for undergraduate, and I remember I made a low B on a paper, and I went to talk to my teacher, and I was like, okay, well, how much does this comma splice count? And she's like, a lot. That's all she told me was a lot. I mean, that is it. And I mean, this was before we had online grading feedback and all of that. And I mean, honestly, I don't know what she would have done. I mean, she probably would have just said, Miss Crow, that's what my name used to be. You just need to not do this anymore. I mean, she was just very direct and not. So anyway, I think though that had she had a rubric attached to that or something to explain to me, or at least told me ahead of time, okay, major errors are 5 points, major errors are 10 points, major errors are this, or at least gave me some kind of feedback, I would have understood, because I had very few markings on the paper. And I mean, I didn't fully understand the gravity, you know, of, okay, the comma splice or this. I mean, she didn't just sit down and, I mean, she talked to me, but she didn't fully explain it to me. So I think rubrics really will help to kind of break that barrier a little bit and be a good way to start a conversation too. And I will say too, that when I started making these rubric slides, at first I was like, okay, you know, I'm not gonna need that many slides. I'm gonna this probably won't be too complicated. I mean, honestly, I've watched some tutorial videos just to make sure that I didn't forget anything, that just to make sure, like, there might be something that I don't do or I don't use that I might need to mention. And I mean, some of those videos are like 5 minutes. I mean, they were brief tutorials, and then like I ended up with all these slides. But what I decided, at first I was going to just do a walkthrough in Canvas and be like, okay, and show you step by step what to do. But I was like, well, it would be better to have slides where whenever, if you actually want to use them to figure out about rubrics, you would have a step by step walkthrough. So that's kind of what I did, is to create more of a walkthrough. This is what you would do in creating rubrics. So I used to think that you had to, and a lot of people in my department too thought this, because we've had this conversation before, that you have to create a rubric from an assignment. You have to have an assignment, you have to go into the assignment to create a rubric. But I found out that you can actually do it a different way. I don't know why you would want to. To me, it's just better to do it in the assignment itself. But if you wanted to just create a rubric without the assignment yet at this point, you're just wanting to create rubrics, you can. You can go on the left-hand screen in Canvas, you know how you have all those options in the menu. You can go to Outcomes, and then you can go to the Manage Rubrics, and then you can work on the rubrics from there. And it shows you can go to Add Rubric, and then you have right there you have the previously created rubrics, any rubrics that you already have, but we want to create a rubric. So you click Create Rubric, and you can create a rubric right there. Or you can go to your assignment and click Plus Rubric, so you can actually go into your assignment. So this would be where my assignment was, and I'm going to click Plus Rubric. And what I try to use in all of these slides, you'll have kind of this blue arrow that points you at something that's important on each page. That way you're not just kind of randomly looking like, wait, where is she talking about? So you give your rubric a title, and usually the rubric always starts with something that says some rubric. Like that's what it says, some rubric. So you probably don't want your rubric called some rubric. You want it called something a little bit better than that. And for this rubric, I gave it the title of Memorandum Rubric. So you give it a title. And then down at the bottom, you see where the blue arrow is. You go to Plus Criterion and New Criterion. So you go to the plus, and then you go to New, and then you get to add your description and then a long description of it. So you get to tell them about what they're going to be rated on. You get to tell them something specific. And then I've already populated one with a couple of details here. So with this, it might be for a correct heading. This would be for, if they're doing a memo for technical writing, then I want to make sure they know how to do the correct heading. So that might be something that I would have on a rubric that they would need to know how to do. And then major errors. Obviously, I would have more than a correct heading and major errors. This is just something that I was working on for this specifically. What I was doing is I was creating one step by step, and I was taking a screenshot with each step to kind of show what it would look like as I created it. And then if you want to delete or edit it, all you have to do, the little pencil, you can edit something that you've already done, like correct heading. Let's just say that there's something else I wanted to add to that I forgot to tell them what a correct heading looks like, and I want to tell them what it looks like. Well, then I can go, that's what I can do, I can edit it. Make sure that you don't click delete by accident. I mean, it will give you a little bit of a warning, I think, but still you don't want to delete it. You want to make sure to edit. They're so close together that it's almost, if you're in a hurry, you can almost click the wrong one easily. And then you can use your desired point value. So you could use maybe if you wanted something to be, right here I have 10, 40, and 40. I mean, I could have had that 20, 40, and 40 if I wanted it to equal 100. And it will, if you put 10 in, then or if I changed it to 15, then you see where the ratings are right there. I've populated all of that with my different individual categories. And what we were talking about in the other room, that it's really important that if you can actually create as many rating ranges there as you want to. You can have 5 or 6 created right there in that list. That's kind of like right in there. You could have more than that. That way you could have very specific things. Okay, you have 10 if it's absolutely perfect. And then maybe they get 8 if it's missing one thing. And then you could go down from there 6, so on and so forth. Yes?
Is that pretty much the same if you were to click the range box in the left-hand
And see,
column?
with the range, because I tried to play around with the range and I wasn't using a student paper to grade, because you can click on that range and then and I'm wondering if this would solve the problem
I think
that we were talking about earlier, because what Michael was talking about earlier is that
sometimes, you know, like you have these boxes and you have, okay, 10, 6, 2, 0, but sometimes you want them to fall a little bit different, but if you click one box and you give them a different point, she was saying like, it doesn't highlight that box, it's like, oh, you gotta choose a box, so I think the range might avoid that problem.
And I've tried to use the range before, and
Did
it
it work
honestly,
for you?
well, oh my God, I had a little trouble with it, and I honestly gave up on it before I put too much effort into it, and I ended up kind of going with just this, but like, the reason you would want a whole lot of criteria is because, you know, it's one thing to go, if it's missing one thing, it's this point, if it's, you know, it never works that way, right? And you always get into it, and you're like, it's not like just one thing, or whatever. Especially if you're talking about grammar, mechanics, or content, or things like that. And so, if you don't have a lot of these, like this is worth 40 points, well then the next one down is worth 30 points. And so, if I click this one, it's giving them full 40, but if I click this one, it's giving them 30. Maybe I wanna give them 35. Maybe I felt like it kind of fell in between those two areas. That always happens to me. So if I manually put 35 in here, it will not highlight the box here. Instead, it will drop down a comments box underneath it where I have to make a manual comment, and I might say, you fell between the first two ranges. And so here's your points, and that kind of takes care of the problem maybe. But when you did the range in Blackboard it was real easy to do the range, and you just had a slider, and you just slid down where you wanted it to fall.
When you do the range in Canvas, what does it do for you? Because
I don't remember, it's been a while, but I do remember I had a hard time figuring out how to get the total at 100 points, and it kept not wanting to work for me. And I remember having Tanya in the office, and we were just like, and neither one of us could really figure it out. Usually Tanya can figure stuff out like that. And so I remember it just being problematic. Now, that is my MO with things, so it may have been the user for sure, but I would say definitely play with it, but I never went, but I didn't go back to it, but I need to try to figure it out again. I don't know.
And I will say, I tried to kind of click and play around with the range a little bit, but because I wasn't grading an actual paper, I couldn't see any difference really in what I was doing very, very much, because I only used it, I tried to play around with it on a test student that I had created and entered a paper with, but that is something that I want to play around with a little bit more, because I haven't really used the range that much. Have any of you all used the range? Susan, have you used the range? Nick, you guys, any of you that I know who have used Canvas, not really used it, so I don't have a good answer for the range. It's supposed to help with that, but I haven't used it a lot, and from what Mike is saying, that it does create maybe some problems.
I mean, I can figure it out, let me know.
Sure.
I think it clearly would have to work. I didn't put a lot of effort into figuring it out, honestly, but I
You're
think.
saying it's just as easy to create multiple columns to say, you know, full credit, partial credit, no
Yes.
credit, and partial can be any, you know,
I'm all-
designation within that range?
I think so. I'm honestly all about the path of least resistance and the least amount of work to the end result, to be truthful.
And that would give students a lot of detail too. If you have all these different categories with columns, they would get so much detail in there.
I just decided it was easier for me to go, you know what, this is worth this many points, and I'm gonna decide in between that how many. It made more sense to me, and I'll just simply say you fell between these columns, or you, and I've never had a student be like, I'm unhappy that there wasn't a highlighted column in that way. They don't, it's fine.
Cool.
And you can change that, if you change the points in each of these, if you change the 10 to 15, it would adjust those ratings. And I've gone in and I've edited those to be more like what I want them. It automatically divided the way it thinks, but you can edit it and you can make it you can fix it the way that you want it to. And then don't forget to click create rubric, because last night, what I was doing, I didn't create the rubric, I was going step by step, and I was actually working on a rubric that I might use in the future. I was like, oh, I'm gonna use this, I'm putting some effort into it. Well, I was gonna do the find outcomes, because I don't know a whole lot about outcomes, and I was gonna play around with it, and I went to search to find outcomes. I should have clicked create rubric first, because I never could get back to my rubric, so I lost my draft of my rubric that I had, but anyway, that's okay. So make sure that you create rubric, because I hadn't saved it, so.
If
Yes.
you create one rubric, like let's say you're doing discussion board posts every week that have similar learning outcomes, once you create a rubric, can you use that same rubric for each week?
Yes, you can reuse it if you are revising the rubric, and I'm going to get to that in a minute too, that you can create a rubric and then keep using it over and over. You can search and you can find it, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute.
Okay.
And if you're going to use the same rubric but maybe revise it a little bit, Canvas will even say you were changing a rubric, you need to give it a new name. So if you can use the same rubric, but if you edit it at all, it'll alert you and tell you to give it a new name, so that you won't have the one two different rubrics with the same name, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Alright,
So you create your rubric, and be sure to check use this rubric for grading, that right there at the very bottom. Because if you click that, then when you open it up in the Grade Center, it will automatically populate the grade that they get from the rubric. If not, you're going to have to still manually enter the grade, which takes more time. So if it'll do it for you, why not? Now, let's say that you have a rubric and you want to use that. You don't want to create a new rubric, you want to find one. So you can click find rubric, and then if you look in that left-hand column, that shows you your classes, and even classes from way back. I mean, you have your classes in here, you can search through those, not just the ones you taught last semester. And then you look and you find, okay, these are my rubrics, this is the one that I want to do. So you find the class, find the rubric, and then you select that and you select use rubric. And then this is what it looks like when the rubric has been added to the assignment. So this is the assignment up at the top. And then this is the rubric at the bottom. So when students go to submit that assignment, they can actually see that the rubric and what you're going to be grading on. And I mean, I have added rubrics after they've submitted assignments before, because I mean, I've told them, okay, these are the things I'm grading for, I'll give you a rubric that kind of shows this and portrays this more specifically. Sometimes I might not have had a chance to create that rubric before they submitted the assignment, but they still knew what they were being graded on, and they can still view it later. But if you can create the rubric ahead of time, do it, because it really does help students, because they can see it, and then they can see, okay, this is really, okay, this is going to count 10 points, this is going to count 5 points. Okay, I've got to make sure to really do this well, because when they see points attached to stuff, sometimes it motivates them a lot more. So just to emphasize again, you have different options you can choose, but make sure to use this rubric for grading if you want it to populate gradebook. Okay, you can edit the rubric. So you click on the pencil and you can edit a rubric, and it's really easy to do. Canvas will alert you if you're going to, and tell you to give it a new name if you make changes to it. When you get ready to grade with a rubric, remember that we had added one to the assignment earlier. We searched, we found one, we created one, it was there at the bottom of the assignment. When you go to the Grade Center, and we're going to have another day where we talk about SpeedGrader, but this is just what it looks like once you're in SpeedGrader. You can click View Rubric, and when you do, it looks like this. This drives me crazy, because you only see part of the rubric, and it takes time, because you have to take that and you have to drag it over. And sometimes the first time you drag, it doesn't drag. So this takes a little bit of time. But you drag it over, and then finally it looks like this, and it does look good this way. And then what you can do, and this is just for a simple outline, so this would be a pretty simple one to click, but the one that I was working on before, it would have had multiple categories, and you kind of go through there and you click, and then it adds up the grade for you. But let's just say the student made 70 and you're curving the grades. Well, you can manually change it, and you can change the grade to an 80. Let's say you want to give everyone 10 extra points. You can do that, so you can manually change it, but you can leave it on the rubric and show what the grade looks like, that it was a 70, but then in Grade Center, you can go back and you can change it to an 80. That way they realize, okay, I made a 70, this is what I really did, and I really need to work on this, but my teacher gave me, they curved my grade, I have more points. So you just, as I already mentioned, that just shows you kind of, you click the rating. So on this one, you know, that clicked 10 points, and that assignment right there, I submitted it, it says student 25, but that was actually me as the test student. I just copied a student's outline from the past and uploaded it, so it shows it's 100% plagiarized, because it is. It was a student's paper that I wanted to use for it, so yeah, it was 100% plagiarized. But my fault, not his fault. So you click, if you select save, it will load the grade. So once you've you've clicked on your rubric and you have everything clicked, you can add comments if you want to, and you click, and then you have a grade, you click save grade, and it's going to put it in the Grade Center for you. It automatically does it. If you add a comment down there at the bottom, you see where it says additional comment. If you add one there, there's a submit, it got cut off on my screenshot, but you can barely see the little red right there. You click submit comment, and it will submit, and it will look like that. You see the comment down there at the bottom, and then you see that it's populated the grade right above rubric. So students, they can click view rubric, and they can see the grade and the content too. When they click, they can see this. You can do freeform comments, then you have this is where you have the different details that you can select about the rubric. So down at the bottom, you see that I'll write free form comments when accessing the students, and you can still use it for grading. But when you do that, all that rubric that you had, all those little clicky places where you could click for points, they're gone, and you just have an area for comments. So I don't think this will be something that I would really prefer that much, and you can actually save this comment for future use. I guess if it's something that you don't really need a bunch of clicks to do, and to use all the point values, maybe, that it's just gonna be maybe a daily grade or something that is really easy for them to get the full points, possibly, that you would just not use like all the clicks with the numbers. Okay, let's say you want to add a learning outcome, and I'm gonna tell you, I didn't know anything about learning outcomes really until just recently, because I knew I needed to kind of plan it for this, so I started looking into, I knew what learning outcomes were, but what I mean is, in Canvas, I didn't know about adding them to a rubric. And I thought it might be something that someone might want to know with assessment and stuff, just adding learning outcomes. Okay, and this is actually where things went south for me too, or downhill for me, because I clicked find outcome before I created my rubric, and once I did that, I didn't get back to my rubric. It just disappeared. I don't know if it was supposed to, or maybe I closed my rubric by accident. It might have been a user error as well. So you go to find outcome, and if you've never used outcomes before, you have no outcomes. So you will have a screen that says you have no outcomes. Click here to create one. You can click find outcomes. Some institutions, they have outcomes that especially in public schools, they might have outcomes that they want all their teachers to use. You can click that and you can import them. I don't know a whole lot about that, but you can. I did look into that. But you can search or create one. We're going to create one. So you click plus outcome, and then whatever your outcome is going to be, this is submits correct outline. So maybe I want to gauge and make sure that my students in my class, they know how to submit an outline the way that I wanted, and they need to do this X number of times. So you can set up a point system. You devise what a point mastery is. So if they exceed expectations, maybe you give them 2 points for it. Meets 1 point, does not meet expectations, 0 points. And then you select the calculation method. And I didn't know what these were, I had to look them up. The decaying average, what that does is it factors all the scores, but the most recent one, it factors higher. So it factors all of them, so if they do it 5 times, it would factor all of the scores, but the most recent one would be higher. Number of times, this would be where you specify the number of times a student should achieve a set mastery. So you want them to achieve it 5 times throughout the course in order to have met this mastery. So it wouldn't really be more of an average, it's just they achieve it at least 5 times. Or the most recent or the highest score. This is if you wanted to keep track of something, maybe their use of comma splices possibly, and something Dean Stone mentioned earlier was that I thought was a really good idea for students that are graduating, especially with English majors, that if we had outcomes attached to assignments, then they would actually look and they would know when they're applying for jobs, okay, this is something that I can use as an example of how to do this as well. And I was thinking for tracking English majors that it would be good to kind of track them and their progress overall.
If I may, but just,
Yes.
it's come to mind, like, 141, oral communication. I'm thinking to use the outcomes, if it's not too cumbersome, if it's useful. It seems like it would be useful in terms of, we're constantly reiterating, certain aspects of public speaking and communication, and just to group those, have 3 or 4 outcomes, and they'd be building toward those, because they're inevitably deficient in,
Yeah, and you can even use the outcome with, that you don't even have to use it in the official scoring. You can add it to the rubric, and it doesn't have to count for the actual grade. It can just track it as far as, okay, you're achieving this or you're not achieving this. So and it doesn't even have to affect their grade negatively. So you can use an outcome just to track whether they're accomplishing it or not. Yes.
So I guess I'm going through the outcomes tab, in Canvas, so we're talking about outcomes, and you can set up outcomes, but that is different from being within a rubric and setting the different criteria.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes, and this you can add it to the rubric. So this, you
Okay.
start from where the rubric is, and you can kind of search for outcomes. So right there where we were searching at the rubric, we went to find an outcome, and you can add it to the rubric, and it might be the next slide. Let me see. Okay. No, not yet, but we are about to get there. So this is kind of
Okay.
what the outcome with one that I've created, that it might look like. And then if I wanted to search now, I remember before we didn't have an outcome, so now I've got to find outcomes again, and, sorry, I switched screens too fast. You see right there on the left slide, find outcomes. On the right side, we now have an outcome. Remember before it was blank, it said we didn't have any, so we have one now because we just created it. So we select that one, and then the learning outcome has been added. So you see our rubric right here, this is our rubric we were using earlier, and it's added that outcome to the bottom of it. So you could choose whether or not to use this when grading. You don't have to use it, you can just use it completely for informational purposes. That way, students kind of know, okay, maybe in oral communication class, like you were mentioning,
Yeah.
you need to have eye contact, well, you need to not read your speech. And I mean, maybe that could be just one of the outcomes, that avoiding reading your presentation to your audience. And then you want them to at least have met that, at least do that maybe 3 times, or
It's easy value added if you set it up, because at the end of the course, they're not graded for it, so it's not threatening. At the end of the course,
yeah.
they can see like, oh, I did it, I got an A, but this is more about who I am.
And okay, I got an A, but oh, I really need to work on this. I really did not make good eye contact at all, but I made an A because of this, but I was struggling in this aspect.
Or if I may, I guess it would be like, oh, I got a C, that's a surprise, and look at this, your whole tendency across assignments was to not measure up in this area.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be good, I think it could be a possible good tool. Chris, did you have another question?
I'm wondering, because we are talking like about this idea of, say, learning outcomes, so you could, for each of your Canvas shells, have, these outcomes defined by like, Andrew just sent out our new department syllabus, right?
Yes.
But I mean, you could have it's a list of 5 like student learning outcomes, so you probably just want that programmed into like,
Yeah, you could do that.
This
If
whole
you could
thing,
actually,
right?
if you wanted to track their outcomes and their progress on whether they're meeting them, yeah, you could totally add them right there. Yes.
and so the biggest thing is like, a rubric has criteria that affect the grade, but these learning outcomes are maybe more tracking semester-long
Yes,
progress.
and you could let them count, you could factor them into the rubric. If you didn't want to check, you could say,
Right.
don't count them in the results, but
Hmm.
if you didn't check that, you could factor it into what the rubric's going to be worth as well. So you could factor it into the grade if you
Yeah.
wanted to, or you
Yeah.
could just use it for information purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what the rubric and speed grader with outcomes would look like, that where you just kind of have the outcome just added right there where you can click on that as well. And then you can view the progress in Gradebook, and I don't have good screenshots of this really. I can just show you, go to Gradebook and you can look on Learning Mastery or Individual View. I don't have any outcomes, so everything in my Gradebook is for all my classes, it's completely blank. There's not information there about it because I don't use outcomes. But if you use, and I mean, I probably will start in the future, but I honestly just learned about them this summer so that I could tell everyone about them. So I knew about them, but I didn't really know about them in Canvas. And still my knowledge is very limited of outcomes, that it would probably take me a while to play around and tweak it and really figure out what I wanted to do with them. But I know more now than what I knew maybe a week ago about them. And you can add a rubric to a graded discussion. I almost forgot to add this in there, that I just did assignments and then I was finished with everything else. Oh, I need to go back and I need to add that. So you would go to and what Michael was saying earlier about the hot dog, I watched a couple of videos and there were a couple of them that they were referring to those 3 dots as a hot dog. I was like, okay, is that the thing, or is that just what this institution is calling it, or? But either way, like, okay, you go to the hot dog right there. So you go to the 3 dots and you go to add a rubric, and then you create or add a rubric, you find one. You do it the same way as you would, but it has to be a graded discussion. I don't think it'll let you do this if it's not a graded discussion. I think it has to be a graded discussion. And then you can add a rubric to the test. You go to, let's just say you go into your quiz and everything is called a quiz, even if it's a test, but anyway. So you go to show rubric, and then you can add the rubric, and you add it the same way. But the one thing that I did find, I did not know this from my personal experience, but I just watched some videos to make sure I didn't forget to tell everybody something. You can create a rubric and use a rubric with tests, but the rubric can't be used for grading a test, just for additional feedback. Because the test, you know how whenever you create quizzes in Canvas, if you haven't created quizzes in Canvas, we're going to get to that, but those of you who have, when you create quizzes in Canvas, it automatically, you can create it where it automatically scores it and you set it up for you. So that overrides anything you do with a rubric. So I guess someone who wants to do a rubric, it would just be for extra information. Now, if anyone finds this to be contrary, you can let me know, because I'm honestly just going on what I've seen in videos, but you know how you watch the videos and you know they're kind of legit, they're people that they know what they're talking about, they're really professional. So I'm pretty sure that's the case unless something changes in the future. So I guess if you just wanted to give them additional feedback, you could create a rubric for a test. So my last two slides, this is the next to the last one. I already mentioned this, I want to reiterate it. If you use a rubric in Canvas that is already in use, Canvas will alert you and ask you to save it as a copy if you make changes to it. And that's kind of good. That way you will be forced to change the grade, or the name. Also, that brings me to another point, that if you add more points to a rubric than what the assignment is worth, let's say with my outline, I have my outline set that is worth, when I created the assignment, it's 18 points. But when I created my rubric, I created a 20-point rubric. When I go to save that, Canvas will tell me, alert, I mean, it will let you know you're creating a rubric that has more points on it than what your assignment is worth. So that's really great. And the last one, so for the last advice, create several good rubrics that you can use and modify. Because you can reuse them, you can modify them, even across courses. You can search courses and you can modify them. This will save you a lot of time. You can Google almost any question that you have about rubrics and you will probably find a video attached to it. Always select create rubric or update rubric to save the rubric, otherwise your hard work will disappear. So don't forget to do that, because it will totally be gone in no man's land and you will not get it back. Also, if you want to use it for grading, don't forget to select use this rubric for assignment grading if you want to populate SpeedGrader with the grades using the rubric. I mean, if you don't, you can manually enter the grades. After you do the rubric, all you have to do is scroll up and enter the grade that it tells you. But I mean, why? That takes you a few extra seconds when it'll automatically do it for you. And then happy rubric making. Do you all have any questions? I know I went through that really fast, but yes.
Just want to double check, one of the slides showed that, as I said, when you click on the hot dog, like in an assignment, it has a drop-down menu and it said like add rubric?
Yes.
That has to be if you already have pre-existing rubrics, I guess?
Show me what you're talking about.
Well, so I'm
Because
going
sometimes
into
I
like
have
an
to
old
see it.
assignment. Basically, if you click the hot dog, you were saying, if I have pre-existing rubrics, I could be like, oh, apply that old rubric.
Oh, and that, I think that,
Cause I'm just not seeing that in the drop-down
okay,
menu.
that was in the discussion, that's where you have to do it in the discussion. You're in an assignment, right?
Yeah, oh, it's a different type of
Okay, so
assignment.
it's different in the assignment, you have to go to the bottom, so go to the bottom
It
of
was
your
where it
assignment.
says add rubric. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
So
Okay.
yeah, in the discussion, it puts it over there at the hot
Is there
dog,
anything
and
done
then
you need
the
to know?
assignment's all the way at the bottom.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
There you go.
but okay, thank you.
It'd help if it was in the same place, obviously.
Yeah.
Life as we know it.
Other questions?
I have a thought that if people can, I don't know if you can import and export outcomes, but maybe one person can build it for one-on-one.
You are supposed to be able to do that, and that gets into a lot of stuff that I really don't know a whole lot about, but
I don't either.
I did see what looked like those were those features that you could import stuff from that has been created.
Like you said, the course, departmental, or
But
the
these-
course outcomes
Yeah.
is determined by the
Yeah.
department, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily like, I'm not one of those people who always rags on students for use standard written English effectively, like, I mean, after a certain point, like, I'm not cutting off those errors, but like you said, you wanna be able
Does that
to,
incorporate
a student
any
to track
rubrics
that
are
over.
inside of Canvas?
The department
semester.
jet values
And like,
this or
let's say
something.
you
Exactly.
have one, in fact, my speech
That's cool.
rubric might even be in here. But, you just click on it, right, and when you do, it gives you all
Alright.
that, yeah.
Where are you getting those from?
This is what I use to create my rubrics real quick, it's from, it's called iRubric.com, and they import into, Canvas.
Huh.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is, let me tell you, this is just if you are starting from scratch, you have no clue what it is you're gonna evaluate and how to evaluate it. You can take a look at what other people have done, and then you can just kind of use these to create your own, because you know, you can alter them, change them, point values, so on and so forth, and they have a desktop and a mobile option too, so you can look at it on your cell phone.
So when you import this, does it import into the editable, like, feature?
Yes.
Like it goes into rubrics, it names it, and then you can edit that?
Mhm.
Is that free? Is that one of those, Rodney?
I have not paid anything for them. the ones that I have downloaded, and they've been.
Would you, how would you import that copy to my rubrics, like where do you?
When I do mine, I do copy to my rubrics,
And
so I can use or modify it, yep.
where does that go from there?
It should go to, well, you have to sign it, but it should go to your downloads folder. I don't know.
Okay, so you import it that way, okay, you download it on your
Right.
computer and then you import it when you're creating rubrics.
Yeah.
Is I guess there's an option there where you make a
Maybe
rubric to
so.
import content into that rubric?
I'm gonna have to look into that, because even when I was working, so how do you get it into Canvas?
The import option, there should be an import option in there.
You know, you can also, there's like that commons area of Canvas where you can go in and see all of the courses and assignments and everything that people choose to put in that like shareable common area. I mean, you can see everything from full classes to assignments, and if it's in the common area, it's free, you know, you're able to use it, that's the whole point of it, you share it for that reason, and so a lot of times, I search things there all the time, you know, I may just simply go in and try to see what other people did, what their rubrics look like, and you can pull those and then edit those kind of from there.
Right. And I'm just looking here to see if mine are still here, if they disappeared. What time mine disappeared? I don't mean that's like hijack your.
Oh, no, I'm glad you did, this is good.
Oh, where is it?
So when you go to assignments, when you're in the creating rubric mode, is that where,
It's, let's do that assignment. Okay, so you give it a name. And then, wherever your rubrics are supposed to go in here.
I think you have to create the assignment here, don't you create it and then you go back and add the rubric from here? Or either you can go to outcomes and import it, I mean, you can go to outcomes and get rubrics from there too.
See, mine are normally like right here. And you just add rubric right there.
Okay, that's what I think, okay, go ahead and create the assignment, go ahead and go down and save it, and then go back to it. And then maybe you'll be able to see your rubric there, or see.
Yeah, it's not on the
there.
edit page for some reason, I don't think.
So then, whenever you go down,
There it
that's,
is, add rubric, yep.
Y'all asked about the Bedford St. Martin's, and there's not a pack. Isn't that what you said? The instructor pack there's not one.
I'll just look and see how I got mine in there.
you know what, it might be from, okay, go to outcomes just a minute. Over there, way over on the left, the left column, all the way to the left down. Go to outcomes, and then maybe it'll let you start import.
There, that's it.
But I thought that was just for importing, outcomes, but you can import rubrics there too? I thought that was just for importing outcomes.
So that's where you would import it to
Yeah.
add it into your rubric?
Yeah, and you have to change, yeah, because the rubric is a CSV file, because it's made in Excel. So
Okay,
you
see,
just-
I saw all that, and see, I didn't address that because I was like,
Oh
you
my
can
god, I'm
import
just
your.
gonna screenshot that stuff and retap it.
Yeah, because, see, when I saw that, I thought it was just where you could import outcomes, because they were talking about that a lot of schools, they have their outcomes that they want, like public schools, they have their
Right,
outcomes, and so you can import them. And so when I saw that and looked into it, I thought, okay, that's just for outcomes, because, you know, you can do learning outcomes and attach those to the rubrics, and they're
Sure.
two separate things. So when I looked at that, it's like import outcomes, okay, I'm not really going to import outcomes because I don't have any to import, but you can import rubrics from there, that's amazing.
Yeah, because the rubrics are very instinctively Excel files.
Yeah, cool.
Excel files are CSV, you know, you can transfer them to CSV, so you just upload them there.
Huh. Good to know.
Simple.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I have a lot of my options.
Yeah, we were done, besides, do you have any questions about anything, that you all want to ask?
This is great, thank you.
Yeah, very helpful.
Thank you all for coming.
Happy 4th of July, stay safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, another wonderful resource I think.
Yeah, exactly. We even find just 10% of what I learned.
Yeah. My job is to just
Begins with a review of your course results. Your Connect has been created, and you're ready to begin building.
Yeah.
So this one is, it's actually into the 8th edition now.
Okay,
I have the 5th edition, but apparently you can still get the 5th edition online, I found it. But I found this other one
You're on Chrome also, right?
that is from the University of Minnesota, I think. And it is an open access text called Writing for Success. The students can download it for
Try to say
free.
that.
They can download it as a PDF, a Kindle, an EPUB, a Mobi, and it has really, really good reviews. And the thing that I liked about it when I was looking at it is that it
Because
has
I couldn't hear it, like I couldn't do it.
14
I got kids running around
chapters.
at home, so I can do like the two
So you can do a chapter a month.
That's kind of.
Because this one
Did you
has,
try it in Safari, to see what happens?
What is that?
No, I didn't.
this one is called Real Writing.
Okay, this one that I have looked at.
Real Writing has 50 chapters,
There was something y'all were talking about
which is fine.
Tuesday that I picked up and I've got it in my notebook and everything.
It's called Real Writing with Readings, Paragraphs and Essays for College, Work, and Everyday Life. And it is kind of more like a review.
And Micah, there's gonna be a whole grade book session to show you how that you can set up, and essays be worth like 80%, and all the other stuff be worth.
And it does have like really nice checklists in it, like first, think about your topic, you know.
And yes, I need to get that, I need to look into that and see.
So this is a Bedford St. Martin's, this one is. This one,
The one, yeah.
this free one, all,
Let me, can I give you my number, and you text me the link?
yes, here, hold on just 1 second, I'll do it right now.
And, you know, or other stuff.
Do you have, are you an iPhone?
Anything,
Or
anything
on?
I got, it's a rough draft.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
there.
gonna be touched for like 80%, and then my 20% is on the raw hill assignments that I give them.
Yeah, so it's called Writing for
Stuff like that, or
Success.
I give them like a,
And again, I just,
MLA,
let's see, I think,
you know,
if you
work
scroll
on
down past the
form with these
reviews,
types
I
of
think
things from the
you
Trinity
can-
Library.
yeah, you can see all the chapters, the table of contents.
It's
It does
almost like
not
the link
have
is
a,
Now, there's some things like,
other than-
we will not be doing research paper, or just be doing writing necessarily in there. And here's the thing, not to say that I don't think that they can start those skills at some point.
You can
It's
view
not the
those,
way that
that'll
it's
work.
really in, but,
yeah,
If
yeah.
you log in and all that kind of stuff, but that'll
but that's,
actually do it.
that's like a really good.
Yeah, and I like, the other thing I liked about it, so it does not have a, index, but the table of contents, I believe, from the PDF version, you can click.
It won't.
So using this, because it's, you know, we don't have, because it's an open. sort
Yeah,
of, it's-
no one has to buy anything.
So you've never had that problem with the clickable links before, right?
No, because it is Creative Commons.
Okay.
I wonder.
So it's from the Center for Open Education at, in Minneapolis,
I may even, I may even, that pilot that, and I'm trying to see.
So it says it has exercises integrated into each segment,
No,
exercises that facilitate interaction and collaboration.
That is so
Well, they were like
bizarre.
5 weeks for them.
Exercises that
Maybe
involve
I'll,
self-editing and
I have a
collaborative
different
writing.
laptop, I have my JSU laptop at home, maybe I'll try it on that and see if it works.
And then he would come home and.
Yeah,
And an obvious structure to each chapter and segment.
You know, everybody was like panicking and trying to do.
I don't know, I just
It
looked
doesn't
at it
make
and I
sense.
thought,
Where's the access for it?
I hate to make you buy a book
Oh, what
that
is
costs
it?
$55.
Wait.
And they're taking a 100,
Oh, no,
like,
I'm not.
straight 100 class, and they're not using it, and they're,
I agree.
it's not that they're not getting credit for the class, but it's not
Okay.
But I would go and pick up.
moving them towards, you know what I mean?
Yes, oh, I know, it's a,
And then.
this one
Evan Lee would make me
is,
like-
what does it stand for? Our W is
See,
the,
it's
is
so weird
the.
because even the little
How does
scroll bar
that
is.
look? Oh, integrated reading and writing content, connect.
But it's not doing anything.
But that isn't right, what I'm using
It's
for
not even
them.
thinking about downloading it.
I gotta spend more time, I haven't really paid much attention to it.
And do you have your
That's
downloads
like-
to set directly to go to your downloads folder?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Access for them to have, it doesn't have, the site does not have a book.
That is weird.
No,
this is treasurer.
Yeah, it's almost as if like
Bundled
they're disabled or something.
adopted, we don't know that we're gonna adopt this, I just am going to use the
Right.
connect site. You don't have to have the book to work the
Look at
pre-built.
mine real quick to make sure mine's still working, cause
So you can kind of use that and just pull it
Well,
together like.
then I don't know if it's
Yeah,
possible, cause it's
connect information, you can kind
I
of,
did for two
even
classes,
listen
but
from this and kind of structure teaching around this and kind
if,
of say.
if yours are.
I liked that,
for you to
the way that the chapters were divided up, because, I mean, okay, punctuation is a chapter, but often,
Not
you
woodwork,
could,
okay.
Oh, it needs to be.
Start.
I mean, like, you know, it
it
needs
needs
to
to be a chapter, but I mean, you're gonna pull that in probably every week.
Sure.
Right.
But it absolutely has to come early because
Exactly.
they need
Yeah.
I mean, it's so, I love that it starts with, what is a good sentence?
well, and you know, for me, like,
get rid of this.
I really,
And then how to choose the right word.
Remember that my sister
Had
met
all-
another
and,
veteran
you know, they have that-
with her in Birmingham on Monday.
okay, there's the chapter on like paragraphs.
Yeah, and there's a chapter six, writing paragraphs, separating your ideas.
And really,
I know
honestly,
you
I
live,
mean,
you don't
I think that's
leave,
even a
you know.
useful thing to go over in 101, honestly, they're not.
Oh, yeah.
Robbie, do I need to stop your video?
And then it
If
goes
you
over
don't
the
mind, yes, you can
process,
press that little stop
and
button.
then it goes to essays and the letters and all that stuff. I mean,